Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward to chatting about this because I've got 12 seasons of staying sober over the holidays, and it was not always easy.
Yeah.
I remember there were some difficult January, no, November, December, and January, like in early sobriety for sure.
That is always really interesting to me because my entire adult life I was using.
Uh
And
huh.
so like it's still really hard for me to under that one's mine.
I gotta turn mine down, run the volume down.
To understand the importance of the holiday.
Okay.
Uh and now I've got kids and it's like even more important for me to like get on top of that. But I just see it as any other day. There was years where people would be like, "Oh, what'd you do for Christmas?" And I'd be like, "When was it?"
See, so the difference for me was that Christmas ended up being a day in which you had basically 2 weeks to drink the way that you really, really wanted to drink
Okay,
because
that sounds terrible.
there was no work responsibilities, there was no going anywhere, and so during residency and during medical school, you'd have 2 weeks off. So there's always winter break still, and then you would have during residency, we had a shift where you could do we'd have 21 or no 14 days, and each person would do 5 days, 4 days, or 5 days, and so you get a 9 day holiday each winter or each winter break. And so those were just times where it was 9 days of like no accountability, no going into work, none of that stuff. So it was a free for all.
That sounds terrible.
What? But I had like your life was basically you didn't know like you didn't have any worries, right? There was no like consistent job or anything like that.
Yeah.
So there was no work schedule that you had to go into. There was no accountability. There was no yeah. Your life is crazy. Like I'm thinking about how like it's like if you didn't have to be anywhere, like why would you wear a watch?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And so for you, it's I don't have to be anywhere ever. I'm making my own schedule. I can do whatever it is that I want.
Yeah, it's literally I'd be like, "Well, when was it?" And people are like, "Oh, it was 2 days ago." Actually, this year is kind of a big deal for me because the day after Christmas was the day that I robbed that bank.
Okay.
And this will be like the first year where the full magnet I've been thinking about it a lot.
Okay.
Like how crazy it is. It's like this is how
How
far?
many years has it been?
5 years. It'll be 5 years.
Okay. And it was the day after Christmas?
hmm And then I was arrested on the 28th.
Okay. That's quite the story. Quite the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um so what do you think it is about the holidays that causes people to have these spike in relapses?
I think there's obviously multiple factors to it.
Mhm.
I think if I had to base it off me
Okay.
and project it onto everybody else, I would say it's a great excuse.
For drinking.
But I also know that there's like emotional components, family components,
Yeah.
um, lack of family components,
Yep.
probably a lot of shame and guilt components. There's a lot of things that I
Yeah.
imagine go into this.
And all emotional things around the
Oh
holidays.
yeah,
And so which contributes to all of that. And the fact that everyone else is drinking around you. So everyone else is having a merry time and you're going into these situations with family and friends and you're like, I'm sober now, so I can't really be doing those things.
yeah. I do you think that people think that way? That they're like, "Ah, everybody else is doing it."
I think for me in my early sobriety, I was very insulated. I think that a lot of people had family to go back to, and
hmm
I did not.
Okay.
I was alone and isolated here in Houston. So there was no family repair or family things I needed to do in Houston. So I didn't really go back home to like California or go back home to San Francisco and LA while I was back here. And so a lot of my stuff was just recreating traditions for myself around the holidays.
Okay.
And so one of the big things that I do every single year is I go to the Lambda Center for their gratitude luncheon.
Mm.
And so that's a big thing for me because there's about 200 people there. We have a gratitude lunch and then the roundup starts. And so that's become my Thanksgiving Day tradition.
That's like the kickoff for your holidays.
Let's kick off for my holidays. Yeah. So I didn't have anything to like go back home to or have like parties that people were drinking at. All my friends today are sober. I don't have a single friend that drinks.
Okay.
And so my entire life is structured around people that are in sobriety that do sober things together.
I feel like unless like maybe your immediate family's drinking, I feel like that within a couple of years of people entering sobriety, that becomes pretty normal,
Hmm.
at least outside of work.
Yes, especially like around family members and things like that. But imagine
Yeah.
if you grew up in a family that drank and everyone in their family drank except for you. What would you do? You go back to Christmas and everyone's like Uncle Tommy is like drunk and hammered, and you're just sitting there
Yeah,
like,
I
what do
don't
I do with
know.
this? Well, I mean, there's always strategies that come up with that, right? And we'll get
Hmm.
into that. And we'll start talking about some of those things that people can do over the holidays that can help protect their sobriety. Um, but I think it's a lot of like you're right, a lot of like role reversals, a lot of nostalgia.
Can we hook that up to this?
Hook what up to what?
Or are you looking at the same thing I'm looking at?
I'm looking at the same thing you're looking at.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm going at a different pace than you are.
Okay. So it says, relapse risk spike
Hmm.
before the holidays and not just on the day of. Um, why do you think that is?
I think it's a lot of the anticipatory things that go on around that, but then it's also, I mean, when we look at my friend Tony calls it the trifecta of Thanksgiving, Christmas,
New
and New
Year's.
Year's. And so Thanksgiving is the thing that starts it off. And so if you're going to relapse at any point in time in that period of time, it's always right before the holiday then,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the two major events that are happening after that are Christmas and New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting when you start looking at the rates of admissions that are happening at the treatment facilities around this time. There is a obvious drop in
Very,
December.
very
Like
obvious
it's
drop.
so clear. It's like I didn't really believe it until I started working in treatment, and I was like, wow, like there are no patients right now. And they're
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's dead. You should probably take a
Every
vacation
year.
around this time.
Every year. It
And
isn't.
then
It isn't. This year it was low. Next year it's every
every
year.
yeah,
It's just this is the slow season.
and it's November and December because no
Hmm.
one's sobering up around that time.
All the way even up into January.
January, like second and third is when it starts to pick up and people start like coming in. They're like, all right, I got to sober up at this point. But
Yeah.
February is classically the largest month
The
of
spike.
sobriety. Yeah,
Yeah.
a spike, and I think that's indicative of the chips that they give out too. So if you go to any birthday nights, like November and December are
Huge.
typically no the lowest,
Oh, yeah. In November and December.
and November and December like
Yeah.
people that sobered up on those months.
Yeah. Nobody's sobering
Right,
up.
and then you get to January, and it's everybody is sobered up in January.
I think a lot of that, and I just watched this happen in real time where I watched a very public intervention on a really popular podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the hosts, he's had stints of sobriety, and his girlfriend was on, the owner of the podcast was on, and like a couple other people.
Okay.
And they were grilling him hardcore. And this dude is like, he's back on fentanyl, he's doing meth, he's drinking, like just
This is a famous podcast.
oh yeah, one of the biggest, highest grossing podcasts in the world. Yeah.
Like now, I'm curious as to which one it is, but you're
Yeah,
probably not going to say it.
It's the No Jumper podcast.
No Jumper podcast.
Yeah.
Who's on that?
So it's Adam 22. Lush was the guy
Okay,
that they
got
were,
it, got it. Okay,
Yeah.
I know, like that's the guy that does like the porn stuff with his wife.
Yes,
right?
he
Okay.
does that too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, they've got like 6 million subscribers. They've got an average of a couple 100,000 on their lives. Like
Okay.
huge podcast.
And it was the Adam 22 guy that was
that was doing the intervention.
doing the intervention.
Yeah, on this guy Lush.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and his whole thing was he was like, this happened 5 days ago. 5 days ago, it was like they were negotiating with him around like how he was gonna do it
Okay.
because he was like, fine, I'm gonna get clean, right? His girlfriend was on there, like,
Yeah.
and they were like negotiating around like, well, how are you gonna do it? And he was like, well, I'm gonna do it on January 1st. And they're like, why don't you do it for Christmas? And they were like, he was like, no, that's only a couple days away. I'm just gonna whatever. And they were like, well, how about you only drink and smoke weed until New Year's? And then he was like, okay, I can do that.
Okay.
And then he gave this whole like, if I don't get sober on January 1st, I'm quitting podcasting. Right, and this is this guy's world.
Is he going to treatment?
They talked him out of going to treatment. Yeah.
So clearly not a professional intervention.
So this is the thing, though. I agreed with a lot of the points that were made around him. Going, he's done it
Okay.
so many times.
Just on its own.
He's gotten treatment. He's got,
Okay.
and then this was the other thing. He was like making public announcements on the podcast about like famous people that own treatment centers. Like, sponsor me into your treatment center, and I'll live the whole thing. Like, I'm gonna create content around my detox and then
Right. You
recovery
really
journey.
can't do that.
No, you can't
You
do
can't
that.
do any of that.
And so they were like, okay, how about you just do it privately?
Uh huh.
And he was like, okay, I can cold turkey this on my couch, which he probably can.
You could do it if it wasn't at a treatment facility. So I used to do a an at-home detox for like really really wealthy people, where they would hire a nurse to come in, and the nurse would like stay at their place, and they would hire me, and I would come in and I would visit them once a day to like monitor their detox.
Okay.
So if it wasn't done in a hospital setting, you could technically create content around that if it was just at your own house.
So here's the thing about the detox. It is always nice to be comfortable,
Yeah.
right? And I've done it both ways, where it was really uncomfortable and really comfortable. Once you get to a certain point in your addiction, I think it's massively important to not have a comfortable detox.
Yeah,
Medically
at least
safe?
once or twice.
I think maybe your first or second. It's yeah, okay. Get on the detox meds.
Right.
Get the benzos. Do all that, right? Like, but after you have taken advantage of that process, it's kind of time to like fully experience the suffering.
Yeah. Yes.
And so what they were talking to him about was like, dude, you had years of sobriety,
Okay.
and you fully are aware of like what this takes and why you need to do it. Just you need to do it on your own. And I fully agree with them that like he's gotten to that point in his addiction. He's 40 something years old. He's kicked many times.
Right.
It's time for him to experience all the things, because when you miss out on those important lessons, kicking is a lesson learning journey. It isn't just like, oh, I'm going to get off drugs. The introspection that happens and the emotion and like
Yeah.
all of this stuff while you're in physical pain is super important.
Yes. There's an old timer that I know who was sober in AA for several years, and then he got onto painkillers.
Oh boy.
And he said just one day I decided to like stop, and this is like his first time through withdrawal. And he went through it on his own, right? And he's like, the only way that I can describe it, was that it was a spiritual experience for me to go through that withdrawal on my own, and I will never do that again.
Yeah.
I will never go through that process again, because it was so incredibly painful and it was so incredibly difficult and hard. And so I
Yeah.
get it. There's a lot of value in that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's people are robbed all too often of that experience. And I think that, when you think about like the original therapeutic communities, Synanon, you know how they were specifically taking junkies, heroin addicts off the streets, and they would literally put you on a couch and you wouldn't get up until you were kicked, and they would just sit you there with a blanket and a bucket.
Yeah.
And then people would go and sit by you around the clock. People would just go in there and talk with you. And that was how they did it.
Yeah, we don't have those experiences anymore.
It doesn't happen.
It's very pain.
Less. It is.
It's not completely without discomfort, but the level of discomfort that most of my patients complain about is like, come on, dude, suck it up, right?
Yeah,
It's really not that bad.
So you've detoxed me, and then I've detoxed in jail.
Yeah.
It was a painless detox. It might have been uncomfortable at times,
Yeah.
but there wasn't. It wasn't painful.
You weren't in pain.
Right.
It was discomfort.
And as a matter of fact, there was no emotional pain either, because a lot of it was once you're physically comfortable, it fully alleviates that the mental and the spiritual pain that you go through because of the physical pain. And this goes back to like, I'm not a Christian or whatever, but when you really think about like what is historically taught about Jesus' suffering, would it have been so spiritually and emotionally painful if it wasn't so physically painful? Probably not.
Okay. I could see how that was an argument to be made. Yeah. But then again, you've gone through it multiple times.
I have. I
right? So
have.
like a lot of people that haven't gone through it as many times as you've gone through it have a different experience as to how intense it is.
Howdy, Terry. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I just think that altogether, like
Hmm.
the level of value of the actual withdrawal has been completely robbed from people.
Right.
So alcohol marketing increases up to 40% in Q4.
Yeah, that's not this. That there's a. I think there's a different statistic for sales
Yeah.
than it is for marketing.
Oh,
But
for
but
sure.
holiday marketing is just, on all the magazines that you see, and all the radio spots, and all the billboards.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're doing ads specifically geared towards Thanksgiving
Holiday
and
drinking.
Christmas. Yeah, and New Year's and things like that.
New Year's is probably a really big one, but when you go around, we live in Texas. There is no snow.
No.
But you still see like the guy, like even on TV, but it's like the guy or the girl on the billboard. It's like a white Christmas, and it's like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they've got like that Hennessy or whatever it is, and it's like, dude, we don't even have snow
It's
here.
79 degrees right now.
I know it's Terry, Megan. I know.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah, and
incredibly.
humid.
Yeah, it's been incredibly hot, and it's like the middle of December,
It's crazy.
which I think is absurd. Yeah.
Um, okay,
Oh, let's see.
why don't you control this? You can
Uh,
control that from here.
I got it on my thing.
Okay, because you're following me though, right?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
fine. So you're leading the
okay.
conversation. I'm just hanging out.
Okay. So loneliness is louder during together season. That's an interesting point.
Okay.
What was your experience with that?
I think for me, especially around the holidays, because I wasn't going home and I didn't have family around, it was incredibly lonely. And the only place that I could find other people was at the bar, especially in New Orleans.
Okay.
But then when I sobered up here in Houston, I wasn't going out to the bars anymore because my drinking had become so problematic that it was easier for me to drink at home
Alone.
alone than it was to go out and like interact. And
Interesting.
my drinking had progressed so badly to the point where I would go out to parties and have like 2 or 3 drinks while I was there and keep it really, really contained, but then leave around 10:30 or so I could go home and drink how I really wanted to drink.
Is drinking at holiday parties kind of normal?
Yeah. I mean,
Like for work?
we just had a Christmas party and people were getting shit faced left and right.
Really?
Yeah. It was kind of an expectation of like, let's see who gets sloshed this year.
No.
Yeah.
Where and what work was this?
I can't
Okay.
mention where I
All
was
right.
at, but we had a holiday party. I was at a restaurant, and the nurses around me were taking bets on like they were like, Dr. Shaw, we should get you like cards and stickers to hand out for like referrals to be like,
Oh,
come into clinic on Monday, come
that's
into
so
clinic on
funny.
Monday, come into clinic on Monday, and it was open bar. So
Oh,
it was at a really nice restaurant. Like the owner of the hospital owns the restaurant, so it was like whatever you want to drink, you can have. You can. It's like it's open bar.
wow.
And so there was a dance floor. There was tons of food around, and it was not like the holiday party that we had over
Yeah. At Perry's.
at Perry's,
Okay.
right? Because Perry's was like very very mellow.
Uh-huh.
There was nobody there like that drank, right? I imagine the hospital parties are very different than a treatment center rehab party,
Probably.
right? So like I mean, like at the treatment facility, it's not like you're gonna have open bar over there.
Ever.
Yeah, ever. And that's
Ever.
not a thing that you can do. But the hospital is almost expected, especially at the vendor parties.
Mm.
The vendor parties are insane.
Oh yeah,
Like
imagine.
that's where you bring out all the top shelf stuff and it's like a no holds bar because
Wow.
yeah. But
Um,
it's a bunch of doctors, right? So you can't really serve them like the Smirnoff.
Stoli.
The Stoli or the Smirnoff. They're like, what is this?
Okay, so do you have a story that almost took you out during the holidays?
That almost took me out during the holidays. I mean, I've got multiple stories of like me just drinking by myself alone in the apartment.
No,
Like,
no, no. After recovery.
oh, no, because I was really well insulated
Okay.
in my recovery, right? My recovery did not have any problematic times until the pandemic happened.
Okay.
And the pandemic is where I lost like all of my protective factors,
Mm-hmm.
all of the meetings, all of like the fellowship, and it was back to in my apartment by myself and alone
Without a bottle.
without a bottle. But it was like other things that I was doing
For sure.
that did not include alcohol.
Yeah.
Was I close to relapsing on alcohol? I think by that time I had I think almost 6.5, 7 years of sobriety. And so drinking was no longer, I mean, drinking is always an option, but it wasn't an option. It wasn't something that I was thinking
It
about.
wasn't a viable option.
Yeah. And so the options that I like was left with was like, my sex and love stuff.
Yeah. So time in recovery and the difference in how it moves super slow in early recovery,
Yeah.
right? Early recovery, early sobriety feels really slow, and long term feels really fast.
Yeah. I don't know how I got here. It's been almost 12 years now.
Yeah.
Like, where did the time go? Because I think in early sobriety, in that first year, I'm counting everything.
Yeah.
I'm like I'm like, okay, like when is like I need to get through Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be my first Christmas sober. Then you're like, it'll be my first New Year. And so you're actually tracking the time and you're watching it very, very carefully and very, very closely, making sure that you don't fuck up around that time.
Yeah.
And then once you've gone through it that first time around, then you're like, okay, like I have experience. I have a sober history now. I know how to get through a Christmas sober. I know how to get through a Thanksgiving sober.
Yeah.
And I had so much insulation around me during that time that it really wasn't an issue. Because I had the gratitude luncheon at Lambda. I had the Christmas party at Lambda, and then in Houston we have sober eves.
So you're setting yourself up for success. You're
Yeah.
not just like, okay, how am I going to do this? And then just kind of roll with the punches as it goes. You're being intentional around the things that you're doing.
No, and I'm really grateful that there's so many clubhouses and so many things that will have events around that time.
Yeah.
And then eventually, as I got older, I had a few girlfriends during the time, and then I'd hang out with them. But I was never alone or by myself. I think I spent more Christmases and New Year's alone by myself when I was drinking than I did when I was sober.
Milestones can feel anticlimactic.
Do you think so?
Oh yeah, I think sobriety, early sobriety, feels very uneventful. Almost to the point where you hear people talk about how boring sobriety is.
Yes. Well, I think it's boring because I didn't know what to do with all my time.
Yeah,
I had so much time or so much excessive time that I wasn't accustomed to before because my day previously was divided into three parts of the day. It was recovering from drinking, anticipating the next drink, and then drinking.
okay,
Right. So every day was the same cycle over and over and over again.
yeah. Add different events throughout it, but basically that was the baseline.
It was a 3-part cycle, right? So I would wake up, I would go into work, and I would be like hungover.
Okay,
And I'd be like miserable, right? And then I would get through to the peak of the day where then a withdrawal really started kicking in. And I'd be like, okay, like when is my next drink? All right, I could probably get a drink by like 6 o'clock, right? So then it's the anticipation of the drink. And then by
Wow.
the time you get the drink, it's like, all right, well, I'm drinking. And so it's drinking until you pass out, and then you do the cycle over again.
and
And
during
that
the,
went on for years
Yeah.
and years and years. It was not an existence that I would recommend for anybody.
yeah, it
sucks.
sounds miserable.
Yeah, it's awful.
So waking up till you drink probably felt like forever too.
Waking up until it was because you would, but then I was on Adderall.
Oh my gosh.
So then that was the wake up. That was like the pick me up to
Yeah.
like get into work or get
Still
into the thing.
hungover though.
I don't think I was actually hung over at that point. I think I'd gotten to the point where I knew exactly how much to drink so that I could be functional in the morning, but still be able to pass out and sleep.
That's crazy.
So the calculus that I had early on, like towards the end of my drinking career, was how do I drink this bottle of vodka fast enough to pass out, but not slow enough so that I have to go get another bottle to actually pass out and fall asleep.
That's crazy.
So it would be I would actually wait. Like I'd have a sip of the first one, and I'd be like, okay, the shakes are kind of gone. I'm fine. I'm gonna save the rest of this until 9:30, and then I'm gonna pound it, and I'll be in bed by 10.
Wow.
And then I'll wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go into work. It was awful. It was an
Sounds
awful,
terrible.
awful existence.
Uh,
And the nights where that was a calculated, like, I'm trying to fall asleep with the alcohol, but then when it was on the weekends, I would just drink however I wanted to drink, and I would just drink to like pass out every single time.
and were you like staying up till 3 and 4 in the morning type stuff, or
Yeah,
that sounds terrible too.
yeah, it's awful.
God, alcohol sounds like so terrible.
It's it was fun until it's not.
Yeah.
Right towards the end,
How long
it's
was it fun? How long was the drinking career? How long was it
okay.
fun?
I drank from so my very first drink was on my 18th
18th birthday.
birthday. Half a wine cooler,
Mhm.
lit.
Mhm.
After that, I probably enjoyed my drinking. I had more good nights, good times than I did bad times, and it wasn't until medical school, right, and that relationship that was on and off, on and off, on and off, that it was
Okay.
more bad nights than there were good nights.
So I think mathematically, what you're saying is like about half of your drinking career was great, and then the other half was terrible.
I It was never awesome. Well, no, no, it was fun. I had a good time. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, right? I'm not gonna be like, oh, drinking was always awful from the get go. Like I enjoyed it, but at some point in time, there was a line that was crossed where I was no longer drinking because it was fun. I was drinking because I had to drink,
Mhm.
and I know for sure that that was in medical school. Like medical school is when it became like every day or almost every other day, but that's around the same time I started the Adderall.
That's so
So
crazy.
it was definitely fueled by the Adderall, and the Adderall is I would do the Adderall to like study, right? But then when I couldn't fall asleep, I'd have a glass of wine, and that was every single night. And eventually, it got to I'd have two glasses of wine, two glasses of wine every single night. Then all of a sudden, it was like three glasses of wine every single night, right? It just progressively got worse.
Into a hard alcohol as well, right?
Into wow, I'm drinking a lot of boxed wine. Like I can't get the buzz that I want to get as quickly as I want to get it. So let me just switch over to vodka,
Yeah.
and that will give me the buzz that I need to get. And I was also in New Orleans, so that's a whole nother ball
That's
game.
terrible too.
Yeah, it was. I was gonna be an alcoholic no matter what happened. It's just that I'm grateful that New Orleans sped up the process.
Because then it also sped up your exposure to recovery.
Yeah. Yeah, sped up the time for me to get to my bottom.
Yeah.
I was gonna hit a bottom. I'm grateful that I hit a bottom because there are some people out there that never actually hit a bottom,
Yeah.
and they're just cruising on autopilot for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, but there's also people that never hit a bottom that get sober.
Never hit a bottom that gets sober.
Hmm.
Yeah, but then they don't find. Well, what do you mean by sober?
They enter recovery.
Okay, so there's also people that never hit a bottom
Let me
that
say this.
stop drinking
They
and they don't get recovery
that's true
and
too.
they switch over to something else.
That's true too.
And you're like, I'm really glad that I hit a bottom so low that I was
That's
forced into recovery.
that's really what I'm trying to say is that some people's bottoms, although it is their bottom, is relatively mild.
Yeah. I mean, relatively speaking, mine was not that bad,
That's true too.
right? Like
Yeah.
there was no prison time. There was no, like I've told you the story before where I'm like staying at the sober house comparing stories.
Minimally lost. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it could have been way, way, way
Oh yeah.
worse.
I mean, you were heading there.
Yeah. And I'm really grateful that
Can you imagine if something happened?
my life would have been catastrophically horrible.
Yeah.
Like if I'd lost my license or like something had happened along those lines, whatever else, I would have gotten like if something like bad had happened, there's a potential losing your license. But once you're fully trained and you're actually a doctor, they do whatever it is that they can to make sure that you're still able to practice.
Okay.
And so they don't make it so that you can't practice. They put up so many boundaries for you that you are so closely monitored that they are ensuring that you are sober.
Okay.
Because it's really expensive to train a doctor,
For sure.
right? And so they want you serving the public, right? But they want you serving the public as safely as they possibly can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the first rule,
Yeah.
right? And so the absence of chaos feels very empty, and then also, uh, people often misread boredom as depression.
Right. And that's not the same thing. So I think people mistake depression for a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
And so that's one of the things that we talk about in terms of depression is not negative racing thoughts.
Right.
Negative racing thoughts is a state of anxiety, not a state of depression.
Yeah.
And so if you're having those particular feelings, then that's nowhere close to what that is.
Right. And you can't have negative racing thoughts and depression at the same time.
No, it's a misnomer.
Right.
And so it's the idea that like that's not really a depressed state. Your brain is not in a depressed state.
Right. Nothing is wrong can feel dangerous, and peace doesn't announce itself, right? And historically, I think Christmas. We live in the United States, and Christmas is supposed to be like the peace on earth, goodwill towards men, and it's like I feel like a lot of people have early in recovery, unpeaceful holidays.
Yeah. I think for me, the holidays started getting better once I was sober because I actually started interacting with people
Yeah, that makes
versus
sense.
having like Christmas by myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I said, I have such a weird relationship with holidays.
Hmm.
Because it was literally just another day to the point where I would not know. It would be like I would forget my birthdays
You just lost track of time completely.
completely, and it'd be like I would look up and months had gone by,
Hmm.
months.
Hmm.
So when did time start feeling different for you?
I think it started feeling different once I got past the first year.
Okay,
Then things started just clicking into normalcy, right? And then it's just started flowing from there.
okay,
Yeah.
and that makes sense too. I think you're right about people really, really tracking their first year, and then building up that sober history.
Yeah.
Super important. So the myth of just this once.
How
You
many
know,
times have you heard that?
how many times have I done it?
Yeah. How many times? Like, how many times have I negotiated with myself? Like, oh, like I'll sober up in January. I'll sober up January 1st. I'll sober up
Yeah,
on Christmas. Let's just get through the holidays.
yeah.
And then I'm sure that's why February is the peak
Mm-hmm.
time of sobriety or the peak month of sobriety because all these people are like, okay, well, I missed January
Yeah.
1st, right? Might as
Oh
well just
yeah.
keep going,
Mm-hmm.
or they start coming in on like January 10th or January 15th.
Yeah. Um, the myth of just once. I mean, every time there was a new drug around me, hey, Mr. Buttermaker.
What? He's always with
I
us.
know. Look,
That's so cool. Did you find out who he was?
he hasn't contacted me. Contact me, Matthew Handy, Instagram, Matthew.handy.17 on Instagram,
Okay.
or Matthew Handy on Facebook. But every time there was a new drug around me, it was always just this once, right? And then by the time I got arrested, I was a daily user of like 8 different drugs.
What do you mean a new drug? Like a new type of drug?
Yeah. Anytime like so it'd be like I use heroin and meth and
Okay.
then here comes crack cocaine and it's like okay, I'm just going to try it just this once and then that was a binge thing on the weekends and then PCP it was like okay, I'm just going to try it this
He's
once.
tried them all.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then became like a daily user for most of them.
Okay.
Like at one time or another.
Yeah. I'm so glad that that's not my story.
Yeah. So the brain uses logic when it comes to dopamine, where when it wants dopamine, and then one exception reframes the entire identity. What does that mean to you?
So the brain negotiates relapse, right? So I
For
can,
sure.
based upon the emotional state that I'm in, right? I will make up reasons or make up excuses as to why I want that particular thing and why that particular thing is okay for me to get.
Okay.
And I will justify it and rationalize it. And I will think that it's the most genius idea ever.
Of course.
And then I'll start drinking again. And I'll be like, well, that really wasn't worth it. Or
Mm-hmm.
that's not what I thought it was going to be. And then you get into all this remorse. And it's the it's a euphoric recall of that drink or what that drink is going to particularly do for you. And I don't remember the consequences of how bad it actually was
Mm-hmm.
when I was doing it.
I mean, yeah, nostalgia edits out consequences, right?
Yeah, but it's also for me, it's when you're in that state of fight or flight, you are not thinking clearly. All
Well,
you're thinking about is how do I get out of this particular state.
okay, yeah, correct. I always tell people that once using becomes a viable option, relapse prevention goes out the window.
Yeah,
I'm not box breathing. I'm not using any of my recovery tools. I'm not thinking
right.
about what is that phone number. None of that. The one thing that I know that will work at this time is I just got to go find this homeless guy that can point me to where they're selling heroin.
The homeless guys always know.
Oh, yeah. If that one doesn't, that one does.
That's how you find it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the tips. Pro tips by Matt.
Look, I've been to 38 major cities.
Uh huh.
The two home runs that I always hit were either NA meetings or homeless people.
That's insane.
Hmm. Mr. Buttermaker, my email address is matthew@handytreatment.com. Email me. I know you got one of those.
Yeah. Type the thing into the.
It won't let you.
It won't let you type it into the chat.
It edits out emails, phone numbers. YouTube will not let you do it.
Interesting. Oh, so you can't post anything in there.
Hmm.
Okay. That is unfortunate.
Stress creates false urgency.
Yeah.
And
That's the fight or flight state that we're
Yeah.
in.
yeah.
And so you're like trying to get to that next point or that next location or that next. I'm trying to escape the feelings that I currently have.
Yeah, so nobody plans their relapse. They just plan the relief of whatever state that they're in.
Yeah. And so this all goes back to it's a feelings disease, right?
Yeah.
Alcoholism and addiction is a feelings disease. And so during the holidays, grief comes up, unresolved feelings come up, stress comes up, sadness, anger, resentments. It's a perfect mixing pot for all of those things.
In addition, the family dynamics.
Yep, family dynamics 100%. But then
Mhm.
it's also psychosocial dynamics, right? Like if you're alone and aren't married, don't have kids, or if you are married and have kids, right? It's a powder keg of emotions.
Yeah, I mean, there is no such thing as a bad reason to use.
They're all bad reasons.
There are all great reasons if you're going to use it, though.
Okay, if you're gonna use it at that moment in time,
Mhm.
yeah, I get it. Totally understand.
So the I deserve it is a stress response. And I feel like, it's the end of the year. There seems to be uh, like a misconception around I deserve it, right? I've heard of many, many people that'll be like, I have 6 months sober. Like I deserve this one drink. And it probably happens a lot more early in their recovery journey. Talking about like first recovery attempt,
Yeah,
the I deserve it seem to play
I
a
did
big
such
role.
a great job. Good
Mhm.
job getting through the new year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but people are more likely to drink after they get back from vacation than when they were on vacation.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Because
because I gotta do. I can't. Also, it's I can't drink around my family.
yeah,
Everybody's already looking at you under a microscope. Um, but
is that what's happening to you?
no, 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 no. But I mean, I know I've heard it enough times where people will be like, go home for the holidays, and their whole family's looking at them like, what's going on with you?
What's your experience like with the holidays?
I don't really have experience with them.
Okay,
Like
like now that you're sober and you go back home with your parents, right? What do they like around you?
nobody really pays attention. From my point of view, they're probably all paying attention, like very detailed, like paying attention. Probably.
Okay,
I don't know. My relationship with my family is still kind of strained. I mean, 10 years 15 years really
back and forth, back and forth.
of just destruction too. Because early on in my recovery, it was really destructive, and it was in their face.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of them, that's what they experienced with me. And then I was gone, and they probably only imagined the worst, right? Well, because they were constantly getting emails about me getting arrested and like all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's my experience around the holidays, like this year, was 3 days ago. My wife was like, "We need to buy a tree." I was like, "Well, when is Christmas?" She was like, "Next week."
You were late on the ball game for the Christmas tree.
For the holidays, man. I'm
Yeah,
telling you.
my friends had their tree up like the
The
day
day
after
after
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
The tree went up, and you're like, what? They're like, we're already decorating it.
Yeah.
Actually, for some of them, the tree went up before Thanksgiving,
Hmm.
and they were like decorating it, and it was ready for Thanksgiving.
So also, I not only am I like just bad about the importance of the holidays, um, I and then also like the family dynamic stuff and all that stuff. But I've never tied. So we had early on in my life we had like a brother who died on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
We like adopted this family. We watched him struggle through cancer for years, and then he passed away Christmas Eve of 2001,
Okay.
maybe 2002. And so it was always kind of just like a damper. And then 4 years later, I was fully hit the streets running. So, it was just never like a big deal
Mm.
to me. I don't know.
Mm.
So bargaining starts emotionally and then verbally, and then the first drink happens long before the glass.
Yeah, the idea that the drink happens long before you take that first
Oh
drink.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
in like
yeah,
relapse mode long before
yeah.
you actually put anything into your body.
I don't think that's talked about enough. I think people hear this, they might inherently understand what it means to relapse way before you've relapsed,
Right.
but I don't think we actually talk
And I
about
think
what that means enough.
and that's what we're doing with the progression.
Yeah,
Right? The idea of educating people on here is the progression that you have to look out for so that you know all the milestones and the markers that come up before the negative racing thoughts actually start.
yeah. I mean, I told you when you explained this to me the first time, it was like a light bulb went off for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm not like uh super experienced with recovery at this point, like by the time we had this, but I've had years of experience with
A lot of
recovery,
treatment, right?
a lot of treatment.
No, it's definitely a brand new way of looking at it, and
Hmm.
that's what's so exciting
Yeah,
about
definitely.
the whole process. There are 10 segments, right?
Hmm.
Or like, so we're on four. And I think the way that you look at it is like you start with like four is like the overall like subject matter, right?
Hmm.
And then there's like all the ones in between there are like good talking points, and then I think at the bottom it's like a prompt or a question to get it going.
Okay, let's just do that then.
Yeah.
Family boundaries and old roles,
Okay.
right? So this is, I think, where a lot of people actually get stuck
Yeah.
is the family boundaries.
100%. So when my first time sober, and I actually did go back home, it was really difficult for me because my parents treated me like I was 12 years old again.
Mm.
And it was like, where are you going? What time are you gonna be back home? What is going on? Right? What you're going out with your friends in San Francisco? What are you gonna do over there? How late are you gonna be out? And it was sort of mind numbing in terms of the family dynamics that I was going back into. And I think for all the years before then, I was comfortably drunk the entire time that I was there. Like there was at least a bottle of wine that I had on my own, and then I was sneaking alcohol on the side too.
Hmm.
And so going back and being in a sober environment was definitely eye opening. And I really couldn't go back home for a while because it was just too much. It was too overwhelming or too overstimulating.
So you have a sober family dynamic at home? Like your family, there's no like alcoholism in the family when you go to these events?
Not I think there used to be when I was younger. My
Oh,
dad drank.
okay.
My dad would only drink on the weekends, and he'd buy a 12 pack on Friday night, and by Saturday evening, they were all gone.
Okay.
And so my mom would be like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm just having a beer. Like, what's the big deal?" And
Yeah.
so, but that was his weekend for a good number of years.
Okay.
Um, and so, was my dad an alcoholic? No, but like he did drink his wine, and there was wine in the household. There was never any hard alcohol. Um, and every time I'd go back home after like college and during graduate school, there would always be wine there.
Okay.
And so it wasn't like, but it was for me. I was the one that was drinking it, not my
Oh.
parents. My dad would have half a glass. My mom my mom would never drink.
Like sip it.
My mom never. I've only seen my mom have a drink once in my entire life, and it was Anna New Year's where she had a shot of tequila, and she was wasted, and she hated it
Wow.
because she had so much. What I make up is that she likes to be in control of how she shows up and what her behavior is like,
Mhm.
and at any moment in time, if that is threatened by any substance, it's a no go.
So it's a cultural thing around her.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 100%. But my dad's like, whatever. So when I look back and I do my family of origin stuff, I'm like, who was the alcoholic? And I was like, Dad. Dad was definitely the drinker in the family, but it never. It got to the point where he was not present for certain things, but it was never like I never thought it was an issue. But then again, I'm the alcoholic in the family, right? So I have a completely warped perception of all of that.
For sure.
So my solutions these days for when I go back home is that I don't stay with them anymore.
Ah,
I get a hotel room
okay.
and then I go and I visit them
And what does that
when I
fix?
when I want to go visit them, and then I leave when I want to go leave. So that I'm not there the entire time. They're not waking me up. They're not like they're like yelling at each other, right? I have an exit strategy.
Mm.
So what I tell all of my patients and all my sponsees when they are going to a holiday party, always drive yourself, always have an exit plan. And it's okay to do the Irish goodbye where you just bounce.
Oh.
You know what that is?
Oh yeah, I do it all the time.
Okay, and we're like, you don't really say bye to anyone, right? You just kind of disappear.
Yeah.
And they're like, where'd you go, right?
Yeah.
But everyone else is drunk. So they're really not going to know. The moment I feel uncomfortable in a particular situation, I will leave.
Yeah.
But I'm also an avoidant. So like that's a really low threshold for me. So sometimes I have to push myself to be like, okay, you can stay a little bit longer or here's your exit time.
Yeah.
Right? But also have an exit strategy.
So family dynamics, considering that if we're gonna like talk about like big hurdles around the holidays, family dynamics is probably the biggest one in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think what this really all points back to is, first of all, it's a deficiency in the treatment industry that we don't really push family dynamic. We talk about family dynamic work and we think we're doing a good job with
Right.
because we're addressing the individual, but doing the family work individually with your family is massively important.
Yeah, I mean that's why I love. So where I went to treatment, they had aftercare program. They had an aftercare program not just for the alcoholic. They had an aftercare program for the family
Super
members
important.
also. And so there was a year-long process that they could go through also, coming in week after week after week. So a lot of couples did that, and like the ones that came through and made it through, the aftercare program with their spouses actually did really really well.
Yeah, I imagine so. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of illogical things that go into recovery. You can't just like I've seen people like fail up into recovery,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really hard. Like
Fail up into recovery.
yeah, where it's like they have really no clue what they're doing, but they
Okay.
just kind of like sit back for the ride and just kind of like
That's everybody. What are you talking about?
no, 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 no.
I had no idea what I was doing.
Think about the people in that very structured plan of like we're gonna get this family therapy, we're gonna get this done.
Right.
Very intentional, right? But and then other people have like their sponsor that they work with, or like other people, mentors, whatever. But I've seen people really be like, I have no clue what I'm doing, and I'm just gonna just not drink and see what happens.
So I had no clue what I was doing, but I was following directions,
Yeah.
and I was really good at checking off boxes.
Okay.
So if they said get a sponsor, I got a sponsor.
Yeah.
If they said go to 4 meetings a week, I went to 6. Right. If they said go to sober living, I was like, do I really have to go to sober living? I can't be a doctor unless I go to sober living. All right, I'll go to sober living.
Yeah.
But once it became clear that I no longer had a choice in this matter and I was going to be doing whatever it is they told me to do, it was more of a, well, screw you, I'm going to do it the best I could possibly can. And I'll get an A plus plus in recovery if I have to, just to spite you.
Which is hard.
Yeah, no one gets an A plus plus in recovery.
Yeah. It's
I told you how many meetings I was going to
yeah.
because they made me do a sheet that I had to sign and I had to do a minimum of 5 meetings a week. And I was like, screw you, right? I'm going to do like 15 meetings a week. And that was like really easy to do.
Yeah. I think that there is like a rhythm to recovery. If you get that rhythm earlier than later, it becomes a lot easier.
Yep. No, I agree.
But one of the things that we do talk about is that, or that I talk about pretty often, is that it's really hard for a healing person to go back into a sick situation.
Yeah.
Knowing, like if you're struggling around the holidays with specifically family dynamics, understanding that is okay, right? And then setting up boundaries for yourself. If you're going back into a sick situation, acknowledge it, make your exit strategy, and like your plan around how you're going to deal with it. Talk to your sponsor or mentors or whatever, and just kind of talk through it. Don't just go into it like kind of half cocked, right? Plan around it.
Yeah. I had to learn how to say no to things.
Yeah, no's a muscle, right?
Yeah.
It gets stronger as you use it.
And that was really, really difficult for me because I'm a people pleaser.
Mm,
And I want to say yes to everything. And boundaries were, I didn't even know what boundaries were. I thought boundaries were these walls that you put up, and then later on I found out that they had windows and doors that
Yeah.
I could selectively put in and let people in when I wanted to let them in.
You know, the at least as far as the analogy, a lot of people do assume that boundaries are walls, but I
Right.
like to think of them as like lines in the sand that you don't cross, and then most of the time when you don't cross them, other people respect it.
Hmm. Line in the sand that you don't cross, and if you don't cross that, then other people. Well, I grew up in a family that was boundaryless, right? So like
Yeah.
they did not know how to respect that, even if I was like maintaining the boundaries.
And this goes back to we live in a time where healthy communication isn't taught.
Yeah.
Healthy communication isn't taught, and being healthy in general isn't taught.
No.
And then for men, we have expectations, but we have no education around the expectations. And then we have no coming of age. There are all these things that really set up men to fail,
Yeah.
which really translates into a society that sucks at being healthy.
We are not as healthy as we could be.
We are definitely not as healthy as we
Yeah.
could. I don't. I think we are. It's actually the complete opposite. I think we
I think it's
are.
getting worse.
Yeah, I think for certain generations,
Yeah.
absolutely. For my generation, absolutely. I
But
think,
I think you do the best you can with what you know, and then when you know better, you start to do better. And so for me, I wouldn't have sought out a different way of living had the first way of living been so
such a
bad
catastrophe.
and so awful, right? Having thought that I followed all the rules perfectly, because on paper I was awesome, right? Like doctor, like really good residency program, neurology, like it was amazing, right? But on the inside, I was like dying and wanted to kill myself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I'm really grateful for that bottom.
Yeah, once again, I think people are absolutely robbed of their bottoms all too often.
Hmm.
They might hit a bottom, but it's not the bottom that they set up for themselves.
Right.
And I think that there's like a logical, linear path to your bottom. And most people, like looking back on my experience, was
Hmm.
if I didn't experience the bottom that I did, I wouldn't have the appreciation that I have. I also wouldn't have had some of the most meaningful moments or lessons.
Yeah. I mean, my bottom could have been a lot worse.
I think you
Like,
set up your bottom though. Like you
I,
really did set up your bottom. Think about it. Like think about the life that you were living
right.
and the direction that you were going and ultimately who intervened and how they set up your success and how you
Yeah.
followed that. Like
I think they set up my success because of all the boundaries they put in place,
yeah, for sure.
or all of the accountability, all the checks and balances. And as much as I did not want to pay the $15,000 a
$15,000.
year for monitoring,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that I did it this right. So 15,000 times 5 years was $75,000 of monitoring,
Crazy.
and my sponsor at the time was like, "How much would you pay to be sober?"
For
And I was
sure.
like, "Ugh, like, do
Yeah.
I need to hear that from you?" Like, okay, maybe I'd probably pay $75,000, but do I really need to pay 75,000? Like, is that really the price of admission? And
Hmm.
for me, it definitely was, because
Yeah.
had I not had that accountability, I probably would have drank.
Also, I think your bottom was kind of drawn out longer than a lot of people. Most of the time, it's like a sharp drop and then a sharp incline, and yours kind of just sharp dropped and then it got better and then it kind of plateaued. That 5 years, when you talk about it, things incrementally got worse, but I
Uh
feel
huh.
like, and I think that once again, this is like the court systems as well, with 3 years of probation and like all this stuff. It's just a protracted, long bottom lesson.
Yeah. Did I think that that was? I mean, it sucked being like on probation, but very quickly, like within the first 6 months, like I was really grateful for it,
Oh yeah,
and then I stopped caring.
yeah, for sure.
Um, I think I got a raise at some point, and I was like, okay, this is doable.
I would be
My lifestyle
interested.
didn't change.
I would be interested to see how many people end up staying sober because of a probation program, whether it's legal probation, job
Uh,
probations.
we talked about that, right? So the reason why they do the doctor's program for a year of or 5 years of monitoring is that there was a pilot study by the U.S. Air Force
Hmm.
that basically said if you can keep a pilot sober for 5 years, their chance of staying sober for the rest of their life is 95%.
95%.
So you put them on monitoring, really, really strict monitoring, really, really close, tight boundaries, during those 5 years. And if they get through that 5 years without drinking, then they're golden.
Yeah, and see, the key to that is we're going to take your identity, we're going to take your livelihood, we're going to take
Yeah.
everything from you.
Yes.
Whereas, like, what were you going to take from me,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So for people who have like, and so that's why I say is like you set up your bottom and you set up.
Did I set it up or was it? I
Oh
mean,
yeah, when I hear your story,
okay.
I fully hear like you lived your life in such a way and you had accomplished things in such a way that like if you flew off the rails, other people were gonna catch you
Yeah.
for sure. I
Yeah.
set up my bottom so that like the only
Oh, I see what you're
way,
saying. I see what you're saying.
and I think everybody else does too.
I mean, if I was still working in LA at City National Bank and I was like middle management at this point, would I have like hit the same bottom? Probably not.
Absolutely not.
I would have been able to hide in plain sight, still drinking the way that I was drinking because I would not have accomplished as much as I did having gone down the other route.
Right. And culturally,
Right.
like there's a very big difference culturally between like a bank atmosphere and
Yes.
a money atmosphere and a medical atmosphere,
Yeah.
which is still very a lot of drinkers.
Both and all of them.
Yeah. It's just a different level of accountability, also esteem.
Hmm.
So yeah. Yeah, the family dynamic is I think a major hurdle for a lot of people. And I just think it's massively important early in recovery to accept it and understand it.
Hmm. Yeah. 100%.
Um, okay. So loneliness in the crowded room. That's what's your experience with that? So I don't have that.
Yeah. So I'm really good at hiding in plain sight.
Okay.
I'm really good at being the guy in the back of the room that sneaks in and then sneaks out really, really quickly without participating, without getting too involved. I love going to the meetings. I love being in that space, but afterwards, I like, nah, I'm gonna go. I'll see you
Yeah.
later. Like, oh, you want to go to fellowship? Oh, I don't know if I want to go do that. And it took a while for me to change that particular behavior, but it was enough for me not to feel lonely by going just to a meeting or just hanging out at Post Oak or just hanging out at Lambda. That was enough to satisfy my loneliness cues or triggers. I didn't need any more than that.
Well, let's talk about loneliness or quiet relapse triggers. So there's loneliness, feeling unseen.
Mm-hmm.
People are often emotionally out of sync with other people, especially early in recovery.
Yep.
Parties reward performance, not presence, right? Which is a when you look at when I think about like the party back in the day, it was like the louder you were, the drunker you were,
Yeah.
the more people liked you. And
Yes.
so now you're going back into these situations sober. You're really, really at a disadvantage in the social side of this.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and I think the point of like I'm not really missing the alcohol, I miss the connection
for sure.
is spot on.
Hmm.
And so that's why I'm so grateful that all these sober events occur around the holidays. I mean, going to a gratitude luncheon with 300 people there is amazing.
For
And
sure.
then having a potluck with that is amazing too, or having meetings structured around that specific thing.
Yeah. Again, intentionality,
Yeah.
right? Surface conversations become exhaustive. Like that. That is not rewarding or fulfilling.
Yeah.
And the social lubricant side of alcohol seems to alleviate that problem for a lot of people.
Right.
So how do you really make it over that hurdle?
I'm not sure if I have yet. I mean, I've got my really close friends that I can spend time with and interact with, but we were just talking about that, right? Like you, you go to the gym and you make 1,000 friends. I go
For
to the
sure.
gym and I'm like, I go work out and then that's it, and then
Yeah.
I go back home. And
Yeah.
maybe I'll say hi to the person that like works the front desk, and that'll be about it. Or if like some guy says hi to me or like gives me like fist bump, I'll be like, okay, hey, what's up? And I'll say hi to him the next time.
Hmm.
But like I won't initiate contact with anybody.
I mean, yeah, the gym's like a very intentional place. People are going there for the same thing, and I feel
Right.
like these holiday parties, everybody's going there to get fucked up.
Yeah. Did they? I guess. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of drinking that went on at this holiday party. This. Yeah. I mean, a lot of drinking.
Yeah, I've never experienced the the holiday drinking.
Mm.
I never experienced the holiday using. It was just another day.
Yeah. It was a
Um,
Tuesday for you.
it was. It was just another Tuesday at the office, and by the office I meant the tent under the bridge,
Hmm.
right? So leaving early protects your energy. The depth feels rare during holidays. What do you think that means?
The depth feels rare during the holidays. I'm not sure. Like I guess for me that's around the having that connection
Mm-hmm.
is not quite there. And so
Mm-hmm.
it is a superficial conversation, the superficial interactions.
Yeah. Do you, how hard do you think it is for people to navigate that? And what is the way around that? Like, how do you get around not feeling connected in these situations?
I think you just go and you just sit there until you do interact with somebody, and even that one bit of connection that you get may be enough, and that may be all that you need. So
Yeah.
here, let me give you an example, right? So I was, this is the perfect example, is I was at Lambda for Christmas, and I'd gone to the lunch meeting, and everyone was there. There's probably like 300 or 400 people at this noon meeting, and it was great. And then I was hanging out there, and then I came back for the 5:15 meeting, and I went to the room because like that's my typical meeting. So I was like, I'm not really doing anything else. What am I gonna do? I went into the meeting, and like there were 3 people sitting there.
Mm.
And I was like, fuck this, right? I'm not going to this meeting. This is like the worst ever. And so then Sonny was like, hey, you going to leave that meeting? And I was like, because Sonny's like the guy that works at the bar, and he passed away, and I really, really do miss him. And I was like, oh, Sonny, I really don't want. He's like, just go lead the meeting. So I go in, and I'm sitting down, and there's these 3 people, right? And I'm like, all right, like let me read from the book. Read from the book, and then we had a meeting.
Yeah.
And
Those are
it,
my favorite
and
meetings.
it was a great meeting.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like we can like because it was done in like 20 minutes,
Mm.
25 minutes, right? I'm like, oh, do you guys want another topic? And they were like, yeah, sure. So I was like, okay. So we did another topic, and it was fine. It was a great meeting, and I was like, okay, like I'll hand out chips. And I was like, at Lamb Center, we commemorate chips, commemorating milestones in sobriety. That first chip is a desire chip. It's an hour sign of an inward commitment to stay sober for 24 hours, and everyone like a desire chip. All 3 people there picked up a desire chip.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so I was like, like this is why, like I'm not there for me, right? I'm there
Dude.
for the newcomer, and
Yeah.
that one of those guys is still sober to this day. And every 25th, right, I give him a call. His name's Will. Hey, Will, and he's married to my friend Juan, who went and did addiction medicine up at Cameron. And so he works at a treatment facility down in Florida right now.
Oh wow.
And so, I mean, it's a nice little connection because they met after that. But it's like, I don't know
What would have happened?
well, yeah, like, what would have happened if no one led that meeting, right? Like, they
Yeah.
would have just sat there. But it's like, that was my little Christmas miracle for that day. And I think it was all 3 people picked up desire chips that day, which was crazy.
Yeah. It. There was a meeting that I used to go to, and there was a 5 o'clock and a 6:30. And the 5 o'clock, it was always newcomers, and
Okay.
it was 5 or 6 people.
Okay.
And then you would go to the 6:30, and it was like 100 people. All of them had been there.
Right.
They were regulars, and it always blew my mind that like nobody goes to that 5 o'clock meeting
Well, the thing is, the reason that they have it at 5:15 at Lambda is that it gives you enough time to get off work at 5
and make it.
and make it to the 5:50. That's why it's at 5:15.
Yeah.
If it was 5 o'clock, no one would ever show up because it's right when people get off work.
Yeah.
So it was perfect for me because I would always like rush to try to make the 5:15 because that was my second meeting of the day usually.
And then you'd hit the one right after that.
I'd go eat lunch. I'm sorry, I'd go eat dinner, and then I would hit the 8 o'clock meeting. And then if nobody was chairing the 9:30, I would chair it.
Okay.
So I mean, I was easily getting in 3 and 4 meetings a day. But that's what I did until someone pointed out. And he's like, "Oh no, that's your identity now." And I was like, "Oh shit."
Huh.
I just switched my identity from like one thing to another, right?
Yeah. But there are healthy addictions.
I might be a gym guy now. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That can be a destructive addiction.
I purchased like 5 things off of the internet for my gym stuff.
Really?
And I was like, I don't really need this, but I was like,
Oh,
I'm just gonna buy
dude.
this. I'm just gonna buy this.
Yeah.
One of them was like this. I bought the I didn't like using the grips inside of
The gym.
the gym, so I like bought my own and
Hmm.
like put those in my bag, and then I got the ankle things because I don't want to like use
Be
somebody
other
else's
people's
thing.
sweat.
Yeah, and then I bought this like wrist thing where you like twirl it and it works the forearms, and
Hmm.
I'm like, what do I need this for? It's like $150. I'm like, why did you buy that?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, my forearms are really skinny.
The gym becomes an expensive habit sometimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you get your own home gym, that's definitely an expensive habit.
It became a yeah.
Yeah.
Which was I did that. I am a regular garage enthusiast now though.
Okay.
Whereas before it was like I was still miserable going to the gym all the time.
Okay. I love going to the gym.
I don't like going to the gym. I like working out.
Yeah. Okay.
So the nervous system, not willpower. Why is staying sober biological and not moral?
Okay. So we talk about this all the time, right? It's the stress hormones around the holiday. It's
Hmm.
the fight or flight response. It's the emotional lability that happens during that time, which then puts people in a state of fight or flight or a state of like manic energy. And that alcohol is always a good way to kind of get out of that particular feeling. And so you're more susceptible around the times where you are hyper excitable or have feelings that are. With him, Adderall helped me quit drinking. Laugh out loud. That's Megan. That's funny. Did it really?
Yeah.
Or is she quoting me?
No, no, no. She went through the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, but that in my early sobriety, I went and I talked to Dr. Degner, right? Because for the first 6 months I wasn't on anything, because after you leave treatment, and I was like, I can't function. I
Hmm.
can't function at work. And I was like, how am I going to do this? And then so he was like, the data's out, right? Half of the studies out there say that Adderall improves people's odds of staying sober long term, and then the other half says that it makes it worse or less
Okay.
likely.
Yeah, but that I think that the there are caveats
Yeah,
to the data, right? If you are an amphetamine abuser,
yeah,
you are more likely to continue that addictive behavior on Adderall.
yes.
Yeah, so I for
Uh,
alcoholics.
100% agree with you, right? I
Hmm.
mean, but at the time, I have all sorts of ways of justifying and rationalizing my self delusions.
Yeah, but I mean, were you abusing your prescription,
No,
right?
so but not until later on, not until during the pandemic
Right.
is when that started happening. And
Okay.
so it was fine. And then they opted to give me the short acting, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I got the
Hmm.
short acting now, right? And so I was taking that more. So I'm supposed to take one a day. I was taking like two a day.
Okay.
But then other days I wouldn't take it at all. So I was like, oh, that's probably fine, right? But then
Yeah.
it's
But were you
always
not taking it every day because you took it yesterday, so now I don't
yeah,
have it?
now I
Yeah.
have it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, that would qualify as abuse.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then I talked to some old timers, and they were like, sounds like that's a problem for you, right? You should probably stop that. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, got it. And then just stopped it.
Yeah, and you know the hammer analogy, right?
Yeah,
You can build a house with a hammer. You can beat somebody's head in with it.
yeah,
It's the tool is an inanimate object.
yeah.
What you do with it dictates the outcome.
Yes, 100% agree, right? So that's why today I'm not one that's like going to dictate that particular person's journey
For sure.
through that, right?
You're not
It's
going to prescribe anything like that.
I'm not gonna. Yeah,
Right.
that's not in my practice.
Yeah.
But if somebody is, I'm not gonna be like I can have boundaries in my clinic
Hmm.
to be like, look, like it's probably not the model doesn't apply to people that are on stimulants,
Right.
and so I can't really apply the model to you because that's what we do in clinic. And
Hmm.
in clinic, our main thing is to monitor for this escalation. If it happens, then we treat it, right?
Yeah.
That's what we do in clinic. And so if anyone's like, oh, I came into clinic because of it, and I'm like, no, no, no. You came into clinic because this is what we do. And this is all that we do.
Hmm.
Right. And if you want this, then you're a perfect candidate for our clinic. If you don't want this and you want to be like, I don't know, let's try this. I don't know, I'm not the right doctor for you,
Right.
which is fine.
Mhm.
Right. I'm going to treat the people that I believe have this particular condition
Yeah.
and then stick with that.
Which is ultimately a cycling mood disorder that is either you're unaware or it's been misdiagnosed,
Yep.
right? And because of this, you are chronically relapsing,
Chronically relapsing.
or at least not being able to stay sober. However you want to define that.
Yeah. You're getting better at the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
You been practicing it?
No, I just think about it and talk about it all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
We should definitely sit down and talk about your trip to the NFL that you're going to go on.
Yeah.
In,
Yeah.
in what, March?
February.
February. Okay, we should like sit down and like write down talking points
Okay.
of like this is what I'm gonna say, or like when, because they're gonna ask you the same questions over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna have a chance to recycle and you should have some stock things ready to go and ready
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah. I think NeuroWise will be a talking point
Yeah.
for sure. That's going to be brought up all the time.
Okay, awesome.
Predictability calms the system. Emotional safety lowers craving. Overscheduling often backfires.
Yes, I'm. Are you an over planner?
I'm not an over planner, but I'm an over committer.
Yes, I could definitely see it. I've experienced that from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like, you sure you want to do that? Yeah, yeah, we'll do that tomorrow. You're
Yeah.
like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And it's fine.
As a
Uh,
matter of fact, this live is a product of that.
Yes, I'm
'Cause I
aware-
had the
I'm-
idea yesterday.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, okay.
Do you think I'm not aware of that?
Okay.
Hey, Matt, I'll see you. I'll see you in January, right? We're not doing any more lives until January.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
I think you said this to me yesterday too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're not doing any more. And I was like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. We should. Yeah, that would be a good one. Let's
Yeah.
do that one. Yeah, we should plan more though.
Definitely the calendar will.
Yeah, it will be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
What do you got? What else you got?
Silence can be regulating, which a lot of people don't take advantage of.
What's the difference between silence and solitude? What's the difference between what is it? Isolating and solitude.
Yeah, I think isolation has a negative connotation, whereas
Yeah.
solitude has a positive one. And also, so I'm a subscriber to the Stoic philosophies,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding the benefits of solitude is a massive thing that they. It's like a foundational thing, right? Like the Stoic man is often in his own solitude,
Yeah.
and but the isolation part is where a lot of people struggle.
Yes.
Because they feel like they can't participate in the reindeer games. And that was a good one, right? And
You've been holding it in your pocket for a
no,
while?
no, that just popped. Yeah, that was a spontaneous one right
Okay,
there.
all right, that's a good one.
But it is it's probably not even a misconception that you can't. You probably shouldn't participate in those games early on.
I think for me that I was so afraid of being isolated that I structured my entire life in such a way, and I chose the place that I live at in such a way that I was like 2 minutes driving from Lambda, and that if my car had broken down,
You could have walked.
I could have walked.
Yeah,
And there was no reason for me not to. I remember this one time my car had broken down, and I was like, there's zero reason for me not to go to a meeting because I just have to walk there.
Yeah. See, now that is very beneficial.
Yeah.
You're also part of the 1% of the world that can do that, literally set up your life around that. But I think where people trip up in their solitude is that in their isolation, is that it's self-imposed.
Mhm.
It is self-imposed, completely unnecessary, and then what it does is it allows for them to justify
Justify drinking.
whatever,
Yeah,
unhealthy behavior, whatever it
The
is.
thoughts in my head will justify anything.
Oh yeah.
I'm really good at that.
Dude, I am so good at deluding myself, right?
Yeah.
I can believe just the most illogical, untrue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
My mentor Stan at the 515 called it sincere delusions.
yeah,
It's like you believe something so fiercely that you really believe that it's true.
oh yeah,
And the only way that you're able to come out of that delusion is that there's someone loving and kind and gentle is like, hey, that's
Right.
probably not the case. Would you be willing to look at it this way?
yeah,
Because if they're not loving and kind and like someone that you trust, you're gonna be like
It's an
automatically
attack.
dismiss it,
Yeah.
and not even think about that and be like, whatever, like you know what you're talking about.
yeah. The thing about it is we set up ourselves in these situations. First of all, it's self-imposed. So just by definition of that, like you don't need to be isolated.
Mm-hmm.
But then on top of that, we tell ourselves all of these untrue things that are seemingly so true. I can't do that. I shouldn't do that. Or I don't belong there, right? I don't fit in. I don't. When the reality is, even if it is true, none of it is factually based, right? You only don't belong because you don't let yourself belong. You only shouldn't be there because you're making things up around what you would do,
Mm-hmm.
right? You tell yourself all these things that might factually on paper be true, but it doesn't have to be true. Like if you want to go, the book says it, right? You can go anywhere you want,
Yeah, as
like as
long as
long
you're
as you have.
spiritually. Yep, 100%.
So silence can be regulating. I was saying, I think people miss that entire concept. Because I've never had a good idea in the middle of a crowd, right? I've always had like the actual ideas that came to fruition where they were fruitful. It was always like in solitude,
Yeah. My best thoughts are like when I'm in the
in the
shower,
shower.
or like I'm waking up for the first time in the morning, where I'm still
Hmm.
in that unconscious state, and I'm like just coming into consciousness, where all my great ideas come from.
So the you're not weak, you're a human, right? These are belief structures and systems that people
Mm-hmm.
have to build up. But one of the belief systems that I think addicts and alcoholics have bought into wholesale is that I am weak,
Yeah, I'm powerless.
powerless,
Yeah.
right? There's language around this stuff, and then language really fueled. For me, this is why I don't use triggers and cravings. Um, but you're not weak, you're human. The human side of recovery, like I say, there's three real superpowers that a human can have. I can only have one, right? That's recovery. But it's childbirth, that's a superpower.
Okay.
High level math and recovery.
Uh, how high level math are we talking about here?
Well, we created a fucking nuke
Okay.
on paper before
Okay.
we ever made it in reality.
Okay, got it. All right.
Yeah.
So theoretical physics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, I mean, not just theoretic, like astrophysics. Like, we're talking about, like,
Okay.
you can on paper justify putting a multi thousand ton machine into space on paper. That's a superpower.
Okay.
Yeah. But the superpower around recovery is not within the recovery itself, it's the ripple effect of your recovery. That's where the superpower comes in.
Oh, it's because you're helping other people get sober.
And you have no clue.
Yeah.
You just don't understand the ramifications or the magnitude of
Yeah.
what
This
it
goes
means.
back. This goes back to the three guys that picked up Desire chips
Yep.
on Christmas Day. Like,
Mhm.
well, how
I
did
mean,
how did I know that?
you
Right.
can really point back to like two royal fuck ups writing a book and having these theories.
Yep. Yeah.
Really spawned generations of people
People getting
doing,
better.
yeah.
Yep. I agree.
And so that in that there's a superpower. Grief and loss of the holidays. Now this is a big one for
Yeah.
people in general, whether they're in recovery or not.
Yeah. So Jeannie P used to say, if resentments are the number one offender, then unresolved grief is a strong number two,
Mm-hmm.
or a really, really close number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand that early in my sobriety because I didn't start doing my real grief work until I went into ACA. But I now understand why that's so powerful.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of, as people age and mature in sobriety, they're going through more and more of the letting go process and more of the grief that's coming up that I didn't have to experience in that first year because I was just getting sober.
Which is probably really, really good.
Right.
Yeah, the grief and loss. Even if you're 10 years into sobriety, you're going to have grief and loss. Like
Mm-hmm.
people die,
Yep.
you lose friendships, whatever it is. And holidays have been marketed as the like time to come together,
Mm-hmm.
which is another reason why I probably have a hard time with the holidays is cuz I don't think that you should have to have a holiday to justify that.
Yeah, I was just thinking like that's the last time I saw my friend Mohammed, who passed away of a heroin overdose,
Mhm.
was on Christmas Day because we hung out together, just sat around and watched movies.
Mhm.
So I haven't thought about that in a while. But yeah, that's the last time I saw him was on
Crazy.
Christmas Day. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people have this another misconception that's built basically around the marketing machines of products and consumerism is that this is when we get together.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that should necessarily be the case. I think that especially for people in recovery, every day is like on borrowed time.
Mm-hmm.
For me at least, for sure it's a fact.
Right.
And so I don't use the holidays to justify like any of that. But sobriety unmasks old grief, holiday highlights who's missing,
Yeah.
which is a big part.
Yep. Who's not there? Who's not there this Christmas?
Hmm. which is
Who
a
are you not spending Christmas with right now?
which is a big part of recovery because
Uh,
people fall off constantly.
yeah, and that goes back to the loneliness,
Hmm.
right? Those people aren't there in my life anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and then how much of grief and loneliness, and this is something that I had kind of addressed this years ago, right? How much of grief and loneliness is really selfish and self-centered? In my opinion, for me, grief and loneliness is 100% self-centered.
Yeah, I mean it's your grief and your loneliness,
Yeah.
but it's still valid. You still get to work through it.
Okay, but
I'm
is
not gonna get. I'm not gonna be like, oh, like don't cry, don't be sad,
for
like
sure.
suck it up,
But how long can you justify it for?
as long as you need to.
Really?
Yeah, it's your grief.
Okay, I think that you should work through it.
Y-
And eventually there should be like
Eventually,
a process of getting over it.
as
Not
long as
getting over it, but getting through it.
yeah, as long as you are making incremental changes, right? I'm not
Okay,
gonna.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people that literally they just hold on. It becomes like a part of their identity,
Yeah,
you know?
and that's tough for some people, right? I mean, like imagine. I, I can't imagine losing a child. I don't have children,
Okay.
right? But
Yeah.
like, what are you
Yeah.
gonna do about that, right? Like,
Yeah.
or like a spouse dies, right? I get that, right? Like you can get another spouse or whatever. Like,
Trade up.
yeah, like new puppy, right? Like,
Yeah.
what's the cure for a old puppy dying? A new
Yeah.
puppy,
Yeah. You
right?
know what?
But it's also like it's your grief, right? How am I going to tell you how to work through that, or how quickly you need to get through all of that stuff?
Yeah. So, uh, it's like a double-edged sword for sure. I think that a big wedge between me and my mom today is that she had already grieved my death years ago, and now it's like she's still kind of waiting for the hammer to drop,
Hmm.
which is a big. I think it's a big thing, and I think about you just said it right. The loss of a child would probably be super destructive.
Yeah.
But then also, I thought about like, okay, the loss of Megan at this point.
Mm.
What would I actually do?
Yeah.
Like that.
Oh, did
Actually,
you hear that, Megan? He'll miss you.
she's gone, I think. But
Well, I will. What time? What minute are we on? At 1 hour and
1:23.
23 minutes, Matt admitted to missing you.
No, 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 no. I don't miss her. Trust me, I'm glad I'm not there.
Matt, Matt admitted that he will miss you.
But I would think about it. That is the longest relationship that I've had. I think almost my entire life, other than my parents
Yeah.
and maybe a couple of my siblings, but only two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I had like a 15-year relationship with my parents, 16-year relationship with my parents, a 16-year relationship. No, 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 a 14-year relationship with two of my brothers, and then I've had a 9-year, coming up on 9-year relationship with Megan. I wonder if grief is a skillfulness. You allow life to wreck you without getting wrecked. Feeling the spectrum of life in a deeper way. Yeah,
Yeah.
I,
Mr. Buttermaker.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good point. That
So read it out loud for everyone else.
I wonder if
So
grief.
Mr. Buttermaker says,
Yeah, Mr. Buttermaker says, I wonder if grief is a skillfulness, right? You allow life to wreck you without getting wrecked. Feeling the spectrum of life in a deeper way. Yeah, I think this goes back to the benefits of suffering.
yeah. And how like my pain and my grief are mine, right? And I get to hold on to it if I want to. I get to
Hmm.
let it go if I want to, and it's a choice.
Yeah, the letting go if I want to. I, I just okay. I've never seen anybody grieve like an extended grief and it hadn't benefit them.
Never had anyone, and I would agree with you on that, right? I don't know what the usefulness of holding on to something is for longer than you're able to hold on to it for, but
Yeah,
that's sort of the process of like addiction, right? I'm holding on to my addiction until I can let it go. So
which
how much of that is part of their identity? How much of that is
yeah,
part of their like of who it is that they are?
mm,
And who would I be if I didn't have this particular grief,
yeah,
right? And then that becomes its own manifestation,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But that's what Mr. Buttermaker's saying, right? If grief is a skillfulness, right? How do I feel the feelings in real time and it being right sized? Because there's a certain amount that's
yeah.
useful and there's a certain amount that's not useful.
Well, it also becomes beneficial to other people if you use it correctly,
Yeah.
right? It's really hard for people to conceptualize this loss. So once you've gone through it, now you can help other people
Yeah.
walk through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it can definitely be a skill.
Yeah.
I feel like I think there are historical people who have had a lot of loss that were really great people, and then
Hmm.
other people that have had a lot of loss and it like destroyed them.
Yeah. The problem with dealing with grief and loss with alcohol is that when you drink away those sorrows, you're not actually processing anything. You're anesthetizing it and blotting it out.
Yeah,
And
it
so,
never actually goes anywhere either.
right, and so the thing is, you're not building prefrontal pathways to actually
Mm.
process through that grief and that sadness. So you're anesthetizing it away. You're not feeling those feelings.
Okay, so when you talk about it on a neurological scale, you're really talking about. Oh wow, Cynthia said she scheduled her grief. Sometimes you have to in order to do life.
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
have like particular things that you allow for yourself to feel these particular feelings during this time.
yeah. Um, fuck. Now I forgot what I was gonna say.
The
Um,
prefrontal
oh
pathways.
yeah, when you really put it in a neurological term, it is a skill,
Yeah.
right? It is actually because you
Yeah.
reinforce and build those prefrontal
Yeah.
pathways.
So the skillfulness that I think he's talking about is how do you feel your feelings in appropriate ways,
Correct. Yeah.
right? Without them being overwhelming or without them engulfing you.
Yeah.
But that's what the recovery process is. They always talk about this like as you stopped growing emotionally when
When
you
you started
started
using.
drinking. And so as I go through recovery, like all the old timers will tell me, drinking or recovery is not about the drinking aspect of it. Like what they found is that that it's how do I feel my feelings? How do I experience this reality as it is without it becoming overwhelming for me that I
Right.
have to go check out from it.
Right. And once again, this really all points back to coping skills, your ability to cope,
Yeah.
and or lack of ability to cope. And why people always say it. I say it all the time, right? That early recovery, you've taken your coping skills away, and typically this is where the massive wave of consequences hit you.
Yeah.
Learning how to cope correctly can be the difference between making it or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so alcohol delays grief, it doesn't erase it, which we already went over. Sadness isn't failure.
Yeah.
Uh, okay,
This goes back to feeling your feelings, right? It's okay to be sad.
yeah, no, I do. I agree that I think it's also something that you can't control when you're sad
I'm
about
getting a
something.
sense of like the rah men don't cry.
No, no, no. You know what it
Okay.
is no, no, no. Fuck no. No,
Okay.
I think healthy men cry.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that healthy look at men who cannot control their emotions will be controlled by their emotions,
Yes.
right? Controlling your emotion does not mean not going through it. It means dealing with it correctly, right? I just have antisocial personality disorder, and so the spectrum that I feel these things on are very different. And so when I really think about like sadness, how many times have I really been sad in my life? Like, I don't know. I can't point to like any one time where I was like so sad.
The last time I legitimately cried is when I was drunk.
Really?
Yeah, I have not had like
A good cry,
I've
since you.
not had a good cry. Like
So,
I will get these pockets of like of tears, but they will not be tears of sadness. They'll be tears of gratitude.
okay.
So I've not experienced any tears of sadness since I sobered up.
So like a woeful cry.
Woeful cry.
Yeah, like your woes.
No, I don't think. Like, what do you mean by woeful cries?
Like you're sad about yourself, basically.
No, I've never had one of those. Not since I sobered up.
Yeah.
I used to have them all the time when I was drunk.
Oh
And they're
yeah.
like, you see a Michelin tire commercial, and you're like, oh, that's so sad, right? You're crying and weeping for like an hour.
Or those adopt a kid in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't I like now. The closest I get to that is like, oh, that's a really cute dog video. Like,
Funny.
oh, that's really sweet. Like,
Staying sober honors what matters.
yeah,
Okay.
and being able to experience life
Yeah.
and experience reality. Like, this life is beautiful, right? But I keep trying to anesthetize it away, or I keep telling myself that I'm augmenting my reality and making it better by drinking, which is
Enhancing even.
yeah. And I like look back, and that was the argument that I made for so long, and that's the furthest thing from the truth
For
today,
sure. For sure.
right? Like, there's no part of it that's enhancing my reality.
Hmm. Yeah. a major misconception and belief that a lot of people
Right.
build.
But it's because I had so much anxiety within me that I didn't know how to experience life without that baseline level of anxiety. And alcohol was the thing that made it tolerable. And now that I've learned how to experience my reality without that sense of anxiety, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so that's skill. Going
Yeah.
back to that skill.
Yep.
Okay, so routines are your real safety net,
Yep.
and I think this is probably the most important part of what we're going to talk about today is how to actually cope and deal with whatever it is that we're going to deal with
Right.
during these seasons.
And so for me, the structure is even when I go home, I go to a meeting.
Yeah.
I find a meeting in my part of town and I schedule or set up with my parents, right? I was like, I'm be going to a meeting from this time to this time,
Okay.
right? So there's a structured break in my day away from the interaction.
Yeah, so the structure is replacing chaos.
Yes.
Okay, so then predictable mornings reduce nighttime's cravings,
Yep.
um, which is interesting because we just talked about how you're going to the gym in the morning and how
Yep.
it really sets the pace for the
For
rest
the
of your
day.
day.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Taylor and I are going to be talking about staying on track during the holidays and why it's so important to not justify away whatever your structure is.
Taylor's sober, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
hmm
Yeah.
By a very untraditional path,
Right.
once again, which is where I've really found my home. But yeah, I mean, it's so important to stay on track
Mm-hmm.
and not use these holidays as like a very, very, you can very easily like say like, oh, there was a banana peel on the track and it caused this giant train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
Movement regulates mood, which is another reason why it's so
Working out
important.
in the morning. Yeah. Going
hmm
for that walk, trying to get out of your head with those things.
Yeah, and then eating regularly matters more than eating perfectly.
Yep.
There's a lot of people that diet regularly, and I was told all the time, like now you're sober, you should eat better and work out, but never taught how to work out, never taught how to eat better. Just told you should, right? Which we already know that you can't sell me on should,
Mm-hmm.
but people who get really really strict about their diet and their intake, if they're off, they can get derailed really quickly,
Yeah.
right? And so really changing your uh, the first suggestion would be if you're that dedicated, stay that dedicated. Don't use it as an excuse to derail. But if you're going to go slightly off course, don't let it fucking. My dad used to say it all the time. Don't let a relapse destroy the rest of your life,
Yeah.
right? If you're gonna like maybe not be as tight about your macros or like maybe you're not gonna be as tight about working out every day or whatever, don't let that set the pace for after when you're right back into your reg. Because this is a very short amount of time during the year too. Talking about like if you talk about from Thanksgiving to New Year's, a month and a half.
Yeah. Tops.
Very short amount of time. But
Yep.
most people are really talking about Christmas to New Year's. Because Thanksgiving kind of sets it off, but it does. You don't get into full holiday mode until Christmas.
Right. Right. But it's all the precursor stuff.
But there is right. This is where
The stress and the
structure
anxiety.
and the structure starts to break down, so
Yep.
that by the time you've hit, and this goes back to what does it actually mean that you've relapsed way before you relapsed? There is an escalation or a progression, or at least a very linear path to whatever ends up happening. And staying aware of whatever's happening is massively important.
Ooh, sorry.
You're good. Sleep is relapse prevention, which a lot of people kind of miss that whole boat.
Mm-hmm.
Sleep is super important. Actually, I think sleep can be the difference between a good recovery and not
Yeah.
achieving recovery.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time I got a good night's sleep without any trazodone. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, this is what actually sleep looks like, not
Mhm.
passing out. And
Yeah.
it takes a while for your sleep architecture to start reforming itself.
Yeah, I mean, it can, right? But our bodies are really good at adapting, and our
Mhm.
circadian rhythm actually resets pretty quickly too.
From the alcohol, it's probably about 2 months,
Which is
a month or two. Yeah. Which
one
is
of the faster components of
a
pause,
recovery.
at
Yeah.
least.
Yes, for sure.
So, it's, again, this all goes back to justification too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't use this as any reason to justify, but also, if you could be a half full person in lieu of being a half empty person all day, right? So small rituals create emotional safety.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, right, it's the small wins are big victories,
Yeah.
right? Continuing with those patterns. I used to, when my first like real exposure to recovery, that sponsor that I had told me, before you wake up, before you do anything, have a piece of paper and a pen by your bed and write down 5 things that you have to accomplish before you leave the door, before you leave your house. And after a couple months of doing that, I realized very quickly that I do hundreds of things correctly throughout the day. And he was like, the same things every day, that you can do that, right? And so mine were always turn off the lights when I leave the room, put the toilet seat down after I pee, wash my hands, brush my teeth, and tie my shoes on correctly. And I used that to really springboard me into realizing that, like, yeah, I don't fuck up as much as I thought I did.
Mm. Yeah, a little reframe.
Hmm. And that was like a small ritual that really structurally, foundationally, like
Mm-hmm.
created the platform that I built my recovery on.
Mm.
So consistency beats intensity, which
We just talked about, yeah, the
again we
working
talked
out.
about it. Yeah, I mean, the consistency is so important, right? Because we're talking about longevity, and there's very rarely milestones that happen through hard work up front where there's an immediate reward.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, we're talking about like months, weeks, definitely rare where it's a couple days of doing something will produce something that you get like that euphoric reaction from, but it's the consistency that really sets the pace for what your recovery is going to look like.
Mm.
And that's true for a lot of things. Working out is a big thing you can point to.
Yep.
You're not going to go to the gym after a month look like Arnold.
No, you're not.
It's just,
I'm not. That's for sure.
yeah. I mean, 18 months. Look at it's been 18 months of like really working to get where I'm at today.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And but dude, it wasn't. They did a study that said that if you do things when you don't want to, you get the most reward out of it. I
When
gotta
I don't
find
want to
that.
go to the gym.
When I don't want to go to the gym, when I
Yeah, and
don't
do
want to
it
go,
anyways.
yep, do
Yep.
it anyways. You get, it's like a way bigger reward
You're
from that.
conditioning yourself that that's part of your identity.
Hmm.
It's not something that it's no longer an optional thing to do. It's something that you will do no matter what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is why I was telling you, like, don't put an expiration date around your physical health, right? If you just adopt this into,
I think I'm of the mentality of like if I look at it of I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life, then it shifts, and I like the idea of one day at a time. I'm gonna work out today.
I know that you like that because
Yeah.
of the way that you've conditioned your recovery. This
Yes.
isn't the same. This
I
we're
hear you. I totally hear you on that, right? I will trick myself into doing it for a lifetime
yeah.
by saying I'm going to do it for today.
Okay, now let me ask you a question. Do you think that it would be more beneficial to accept it as a lifestyle for the rest of your life than it would be to trick yourself into it?
I think that at the beginning, because of the way that I work,
That's a good point.
it's easier for me to think about it one day at a time.
Okay.
And eventually it will become a working part of my mind.
Yeah.
And it'll be something that I don't think about twice. I just do.
So once
But
again,
at the beginning, I have to, for me, right? This is me personally, right? I have to put a lot of structure around it and say, all right, I'm going to do this today, and build it into my schedule in such a way that it just happens.
and this is interesting, right? Because you're a pretty accomplished doctor, right? You're like moving into like a later season in your life, as far as like you're not a spring chicken, right?
Right.
You're not like 20 years old, and you're still. And I think this should be something that people like take heed to, is that like if you have to structure it in and build it up, that's what you do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like, so I've told you what happens to me with the gym, right? I will buy a membership and then I won't go for like 6 months or 3 months, 4 months. I won't go at all. And then I'll finally be like, all right, all you have to do is do a one lap around the gym. You don't do anything else, but go to the gym and just walk in, like scan your pass, and then that's it. And then the next day, scan your pass and do a lap around and just check out the materials, check out the stuff that's there. The next day, maybe go pick up a weight. And the next day, maybe go, and then eventually, right, I'm in there working out.
Okay.
But it's like it has to be like a slow, gradual thing because I'll want to do it perfectly from the moment I step in there to be like, all right, like I'm back. I'm back and here's my routine, right? I'm gonna do like the routine the way that I was doing it before, like when I was actually in shape and before I put on these 40 pounds. Like it's just
Dude, I've been looking up like Indians in really good shape.
yeah.
You cannot use that genetic thing as like an excuse.
I
There are some amazing, amazing.
I
I mean,
started
just
I
like,
started following these like two Gujarati guys because I mean I think like you can't just say Indian, right? Because there's different genes for
oh,
different
now here it
categories.
goes.
I saw this thing on Instagram, and it was like the tall, skinny guy working out for 2 years, right? And his arm was just like nothing, right? Just like the regular L shape.
Okay.
Then it was like this short guy working out for like 2 months, and he was like ripped. And
No.
I was like, yep, that is so true. Not even funny. Does not happen with the tall, lanky, skinny guys at all, ever. And I was like, must be nice to have genes where like you just go into the gym for like an hour and like all of a sudden you're ripped.
Oh, dude, I'm not. Look, yeah, I'm just
But
saying
it's
you
not, the
can't. You
grass
can't.
is always greener, right?
Yeah. No, I'm talking about like some of the best physiques I've ever seen. They're like symmetrical.
Uh huh.
I mean, I sent you that one guy.
Yeah, but you also were like, he's definitely on roids.
Well, okay. I just said a little bit of testosterone never
You
helped.
didn't say a little bit. Right? What did you say? He was like definitely taking like androgen or
Oh,
something
okay.
like
All
that.
right. You add a little bit of anabolics
Yeah,
and
anabolics and like I was like, okay, note to self.
abs are made in the kitchen, my friends. Cynthia, words of
Yeah,
wisdom.
I'm working on it. I'm tracking my calories, Cynthia. Tracking my calories.
Okay. So long-term sobriety has its own risks,
Yeah.
right? What no one tells you about life and sobriety after year 5.
So have you heard about those double digit meetings?
No.
So there was a point in time where there were so many people relapsing at the 10-year mark
What?
and over that they started a double digits meeting over at Lambda so that people with long term sobriety could have a place where they could go and talk about the things that were really going on with them.
Really?
And I think the idea around it was that old timers were coming into meetings pretending like they had it all figured out and everything
Oh,
together, and they didn't feel comfortable going in there and being like, here's what's really going on with me. Here's like all the fucked up shit that's still happening in my life, even though I've got like 15 years of sobriety.
okay. So,
And then so having a place where they could go and have other people in long term sobriety that are still struggling and suffering too was really useful for me because it set up for me that this is a lifelong process and it's
mhm.
not going to be unicorns and rainbows at the end of 10 years. It's going to be a ongoing process.
Yeah.
So it's practice these principles in all your affairs, not I've arrived.
Scott was just talking about this. He has a really hard time listening to people say that, oh, I'm a recovered alcoholic or I'm a recovered addict.
Mhm.
And, it just kind of marries into that.
Well,
But,
what from what I understand, what they mean by that is that they woke up sober and they woke up recovered, and that they have a daily reprieve for that.
okay, well, somebody with 2 months can say the same thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the recovery is not from the drinking. When they say I'm a recovered alcoholic, it's I've recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body,
Okay. This sounds cool.
which is exactly what's inside of the book.
Yeah.
So when they say like the quote that's in the book about recovered, right, is the recovery is not from the drinking side. The
For sure.
recovery is from the hopeless state of mind and body.
I think that is taught pretty early in recovery journeys is that alcohol is but a symptom.
Yes.
However, I do think a lot of people don't fully grasp what that means because they really still point at alcohol as the problem.
Yeah. It's very clear to me. It was very clear to me by the time I got done with treatment that the problem was no longer alcohol. The problem was me.
Oh yeah,
I was like, yes. Got it.
very easy for me
Can't
to
blame this on myself anymore, right? Or like
on the
can't blame this
alcohol.
on the alcohol. I was like, oh, like my way of living and my thought processes are all messed up.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the situ. Like my thoughts around this lately has been like, can I like abuse a hammer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you keep saying yes, but I don't see
Yes.
how you can abuse a hammer.
Well, what if like you derive joy out of going and like putting dents in cars?
That wouldn't be the hammer. That would be the car that's being abused. The hammer's doing its job.
I am the instrument of that hammer. right? So can I abuse a hammer? I am abusing that hammer,
Okay.
right?
So,
It goes back to I am still the problem.
oh yeah, for sure. Well, and that's why I keep thinking to myself like I don't abuse drugs. I don't abuse them. I abuse myself,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so like taking the drugs out of the equation, that
Well,
wouldn't have been
so
sufficient.
so my belief, right, today is that I used alcohol perfectly.
Yeah.
I used it for exactly what its purpose was for.
Mhm.
Its purpose was to get me to a bottom so low that I had to wake up from it.
Yeah.
And I used alcohol perfectly.
Yeah.
And now that I've used alcohol perfectly, there's no reason to use it again
Yeah.
because it's already done its purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. People talk about that they love their life, and I always ask them like, well, then why do you keep relapsing? If alcohol is truly a tool for escapism,
Mm-hmm.
and you love your life, like why are you trying to escape it constantly?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense.
That's not what I believe the purpose of alcohol was for.
What was it for you?
Yeah, I told you to
To
get me
to
to
get
get
you
me
to
to
that
a
bottom?
bottom.
Yeah.
Had I not had alcohol in my life, I would not have gotten to the bottom that I have today.
Okay, so I think it becomes a tool for escape after it becomes a choice,
Yeah.
which is what I'm saying to these people is like, now that it's a choice and you love your life,
Yes.
why are you
doing
trying
it?
to escape your life?
Well, some people believe that they're not using it to escape their life; they're using it once again to augment their life.
Yeah, but
And I'm like,
you can
really?
believe something and it's still not true.
Yeah.
Like I've believed many things that just were not true. I
I've.
thought we didn't go to the moon until like a year ago.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What made you change your
And
mind?
even still
Wait,
sometimes,
what made you change your mind? When you were like reading about these mathematicians that like had like the
yeah.
formula for,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
you were like,
So
wow, that's real math
it,
there.
it was a combination of things where I realized that there was a high likelihood that we had faked the moon landing, but that we didn't fake going to the moon.
You faked the moon landing.
I was conflating the faking of the moon landing
Okay,
with the fact that we didn't go to the moon.
got it. So
Yeah.
you thought the moon landing was not real.
I still think it's not real.
The video of the moon
Hmm.
landing, or the footage that they have of that.
Have you seen the footage of it?
Yeah, I've seen. I can get on board with that.
Okay,
But the idea that the moon landing itself was not real.
correct.
I'm
I
like, I'm
conflated
pretty
the
sure,
two
yeah,
things.
I'm pretty sure they got to the moon.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. But I thought because of what I was seeing that they were lying to us about that, they just wholesale lied to us about going to the moon.
Right.
And then I realized that that was a fallacy.
They both don't have to be true for
Right.
one of them to be true.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So
What else we got?
emotional growth continues probably forever.
Yep.
Um,
It's an ongoing iterative process for me of letting go.
yeah.
And I will never be done letting go until the day I die. There's always something to let go of. So for me, the spiritual journey is not about of acquiring anything. It's about one of constantly letting things go.
That makes
And
sense.
as I let things go, new things come into my life because I've let the old things go.
Yeah. The emotional growth side of this is, well, people talk about emotional sobriety and hitting that like years into after they put the drink down.
Yeah.
And I think that, this goes back to what I always say. It is very easy to quit drinking. It's super hard to stay quit.
Yes.
Um,
I did it every morning. Every morning I quit.
yeah.
I tell my patients it's really easy to stop drinking, right? The really difficult portion is how do I get you to stop starting?
Fuck yeah.
How do you stop the starting process? And
Yeah.
if you learn how to do that, then you'll be in good shape.
I learned something the other day that Scott told me. I was like, how do you deal with eating disorders? Like, what is it like? What is really going to move the needle on like helping them like take
Uh,
those first steps?
Okay.
You know what he said? He said they have to stop weighing themselves.
Yeah.
They have to stop trying to lose weight
Yeah.
or trying to gain weight or whatever it is. That needs to stop.
Right. The idea around it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is it that we're actually trying to accomplish here?
Yeah.
And the idea is you are not eating or you are eating due to emotional circumstances
Mhm.
underneath that. And so if the looking at the scale or weighing yourself is just going to bring that stuff back up again, you're hurting yourself.
Yeah.
But this goes back to what Taylor told you,
Yeah.
right? Like if you keep going to meetings and you keep going to meetings and feeling bad about it, well, then stop going to meetings.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't sound like it's helpful for you.
Yeah.
And I really like it. Mike sets up the concept for me of like he's like there are no absolutes. It's we're gonna change the concept, right? No judgment around it, but we're going to say are things useful or not useful? If they're useful, keep fucking doing them.
Hmm.
If they're not useful, then stop.
Okay, but what if they're not useful but also not harmful? They're just kind of pointless.
But there's still some utility to it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. You're getting some reward out of doing that particular thing. It has
Okay.
some utility in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it.
Oh, she said stop. Substitute with healthy things, right? It's not an equation of subtraction. It's algebra with variables.
Hmm.
It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, that's from Cynthia.
Yeah. Okay, so asking for help never expires. Recovery deepens. It doesn't end.
Yeah.
I think that the recovery deepens. It doesn't end. This is where there's levels to recovery, right?
Yes.
And I always use the springboard analogy where like people access sober coaching, and that should be like a springboard into X, and then that should be a springboard into X. And I think ultimately the goal around recovery is to Ted and I talk about this all the time. The whole goal around recovery is to live on a higher level of spirituality, like ever growing
Right.
level of spirituality.
But you determine your level of spirituality. You can stop anytime you want to.
Yeah, but then is like then you're like saying I've arrived?
That's your choice. There's always another level to play.
Yeah.
You can always level up. But if you're content with where you're at, who am I to determine that that's like you need to go further than that? Who
Yeah.
says that you need to like be like Ramdas and like float on and be like completely spiritually fit? What if your level of awareness and level of consciousness was like, I'm just gonna be happy, joyous, and free. I don't need to be, like detached from my ego and like
A
walking
monk.
separately from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
My sponsor would always tell me, he's like, look, I like my stuff. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, I like my stuff. If you want to go to the Himalayas and into the Alps and like go meditate and like and let go of all that stuff, right? You're totally fine to do that. But I like my stuff, and I will be spiritual here.
Okay.
And I was like, okay,
I like my stuff too,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah. But I mean, like you could let all that go.
I
I mean, do you, like how spiritually fit do you want to be?
So this is a question that like I mean, I'm looking at like monastic lifestyles right now. And like truly am like just obsessed with like looking up like different,
Wait, define that for me, monastic.
like monks.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, specifically Catholic monks.
okay.
And
Well, you should talk to Annie about that.
yeah, well I talk to him about it all the time.
Okay.
And it's just very impressive to see like how willing these people are to like literally die to themselves every day
Yeah.
and like deny themselves of like even the most simplest of
And that's
worldly pleasure.
that's one path to spirituality, right?
Yeah.
But we talk about like in Hinduism, there are multiple paths to spirituality, right? And one of them is the sacrificing side of it, but one of them also through dharma and through work,
Mm-hmm.
right? So your spiritual journey might be one of like accomplishing X, Y, and Z, and then giving back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can find purpose and reward,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think that like certain levels of success kind of predetermine that you're not going to be grateful either. Like think about like all these like mega billionaires
Mm-hmm.
that like take everything for granted. At least publicly, it's what it seems. I don't know.
Right. You don't know.
Yeah.
Once
Okay.
I've.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
I know. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I thought about that after I said it.
I was
I'm
like, that's judging their.
they're not
their,
public though.
They're not public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, if you've sat down and like talked with them, right? Like they're just like you and me.
Well, that's the other part is like taking. I mean, I think human beings have a propensity to take the humanness out of people who aren't in front of you.
Yeah.
Like which is really prevalent in the political world where everybody looks at those people as like super evil.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yeah, but if you go to their house on Christmas, they're probably like singing with their grandkids, and like opening presents with their family and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Staying sober through time, not just through holidays. This is kind of what I was saying, is that like the holidays are just another day. Like they shouldn't be used as a
Yes,
stumbling
yes,
block.
yeah. And treating it as just one more day, right? One more day of sobriety.
Yeah. I yeah. So small choices compound, which is the small wins are big victories. And early in recovery, that's massively important.
Hmm.
Emotional literacy increases resilience for most people.
Emotional literacy is being able to feel my feelings, not reading about my emotions,
Okay.
right? Being able to
Yeah.
actually feel the feelings.
Yeah, there is a literal definition to those words, and then there's the practical application.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay, relapse isn't about the date on a calendar. Now, there is, I feel like, fallacies and misconceptions around what relapse is.
Okay, what's your definition of a relapse?
It's a return to serious symptoms.
Okay. So
But what is the implications and ramifications of a relapse? I feel like people, there's an actual term for this fallacy, but it's like basically that you zero out after a
yeah,
relapse.
so I mean, this goes back to my sponsor who had a pear cider after 35 years of sobriety. Did not have, did he catch a buzz? I think he said he like felt a little funny afterwards, but didn't go out and get wasted.
Yeah.
Didn't go into those things. Picked up a desire chip,
Yeah.
right? So I
Stayed
mean,
your sponsor.
what
Stayed your sponsor.
stayed? What I want what he has.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So why would I not? But there were plenty of sponsees that dropped him.
Right?
Yeah, and I was like, dude, after 35 years, like, I still want your 35 years of experience.
Well, also, okay, so this is what I'm talking about is like, um, that could be like a major, um, that could end up being majorly beneficial for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That his whole experience.
Yeah, his story has evolved and changed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So meaning outlasts motivation. I think motivation is one of the worst things to base anything off of.
Yes.
Motivation is so fleeting.
Yes.
Doesn't mean anything.
You have to have purpose and meaning and all that.
So mine is dedication and discipline. And the reason why is because you can be dedicated until you are disciplined, or disciplined until you are dedicated. And you can subtract the motivation out, and
So
it
how
will.
is that any different than what I'm doing, right? About I'm gonna work out for today,
No,
and then eventually.
hey, look, I am all for what you're doing around that. I
Okay.
totally am. What I'm
Okay.
saying is there an evolution out of tricking yourself
There's an evolution out of tricking yourself.
into like an intentional? I'm going to do this for the rest of my life,
Yeah,
and be able to come
I know myself well enough to know that
right
this is,
now. That's
this,
not
yeah,
the.
this is right now. That is not my mindset.
Yeah.
Right now, my mindset is, I'm gonna move that scale, right, and I'm gonna keep doing it. But eventually, I'm gonna enjoy it so much
That you're
that
not gonna
I'm
wanna
not
stop.
gonna want to stop. And that when the treatment facility opens up in Pasadena, and I have to go there in the morning, I will figure out a way to go to a gym first, then go to work.
What gym do you go to?
LA Fitness.
Oh yeah, they're all over the place.
Yeah, they're all. But I mean, it has to be. I'm so messed up around that stuff. It has to be like on the way to work, and like very few barriers to like getting in there.
What if we just work out at the facility?
I won't do that.
What if you worked out with people?
Like patience?
No,
That's
no, no, no,
terrible.
no, no, no. What if we like had a Scott and I mean Ian and I were talking about this, where we have like a workout group
At the facility,
for us, not with the clients.
you would build a facility just for the employees to go work out at.
Well, the clients could probably work out there too, but
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna put a gym there for
Okay.
sure.
Well, I mean, I believe you're going to put a gym there.
Yeah.
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 But it would have to be one that's safe for the clients as well.
So there are standards around.
What you can actually have in a treatment facility.
Correct,
Gym.
but from what I've seen, it's like pretty extensive.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So glad I'm the medical director. Like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
You're like, we need to have 100-pound weights. I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
No, well, we take away free weights and everything's on cables.
You take away free weights and everything's on cable. Okay, I'm totally fine with that. I'm actually okay with dumbbells up to like 40 pounds,
Yeah, we can
like
do that
40 or
too.
50 pounds. Like, I'm okay with dumbbells. I think I'm okay with the Smith machine,
Yeah,
but it has to be like, I can't have anyone. It has
there's
to
still adjustable Smith machine. Like everything is adjustable and on cables.
Oh, okay, that's it. You can have a Smith machine on cables.
Yeah.
I didn't know
You can
that.
have the weights that are connected to it that are adjustable.
Okay.
So it just adds more weight to it or takes it away.
Okay. Interesting.
So recovery matures with you. You don't outgrow your support. Oh, community is protective. There's a
Yes.
whole framework and like adjustment around the way that people view community because I feel like a lot of people go into certain communities and just assume that it's harmful
Certain communities, they assume it's harmful.
while they're in their addiction, and then they
Okay.
move that philosophy into their recovery as well. And what I'm saying is that we need to reframe the way that we think about the community as a protective thing or at least a beneficial
So
thing.
I don't say it as just community. I say it has to be a healthy attachment. And
Mm.
so you use the attachment model for community, and that has to have certain criteria in order for it to be safe. And so the three criteria that I always say is that it has to be close proximity,
Mm-hmm.
easily accessible, and unconditionally accepting. I think those are the three main ones,
That okay.
right? It can't be one that's like causing you anxiety when you walk into it.
Okay. I think that a certain level, okay, I should say this from a man's perspective. Having like a men's group where they can shame you out of unhealthy behavior is a good thing.
Where they can shame you out of. I don't think it would be called shaming then.
Yeah, or it's like, dude, I can't believe that you're
How
jerking
about
off
how
to.
about how about they hold you accountable,
Okay.
right? Because I mean, like, if they're gonna shame you, that sounds inherently not safe,
I know it sounds not safe, but think about like childhood. Like,
right?
I was shamed into acting right a lot.
That sounds awful.
It was
That sounds terrible. That sounds like you grew up in an alcoholic family, and
no, no, no. I'm talking about the kids that I was around too, where it was like picked on. Like we would pick on each other
so
out
I
of doing.
this is so awesome, right? So you've normalized the whole like what I thought was completely normal is having friends that like picked on you and bullied you and made fun of you, right? And
Yeah,
I was like, oh, that's how you show that you love someone, right?
yeah,
And like
yeah.
you're like sarcastic with them, right? Or like you're mean to them. That's how you show. How about you just show me that you love me by showing me that you love me, and being like kind and generous to me, as opposed to like being
Yeah,
mean to me.
that's asking a lot.
Or maybe I've discovered that, oh, like there are healthy ways to encourage someone to do something instead of shaming them into it.
Okay, okay.
I mean, like, who wants to be shamed?
Sometimes I think it's important.
Shaming someone into doing something,
No, shaming them out of doing something.
shaming them out of doing something.
Yes,
So, shaming somebody is useful.
I think so sometimes.
I
Think about
want
it
to.
when you with a kid, you're like, "Hey, we don't do that." Right? That's bad.
Okay, all right.
That's shaming them, right?
No, that's putting up healthy boundaries.
With the use of shame.
We don't do that is not shaming the kid.
Okay, we don't do that. Only idiots do that. What about something like that?
Okay,
I haven't
is that
said that.
how you would talk to your kid?
No. If I
Okay,
had a
then
boy, though, if I had a boy, I would
you'd be
definitely,
like, "Don't fucking do that, right? Only idiots do that."
probably,
Oh man, I'm so glad you have girls. Another reason why the universe does not want you to have boys,
for sure.
right? Like you're gonna be so loving and gentle with them, right? You're not gonna
Yeah,
shame your little girls.
definitely.
Why is it okay to shame your little boy?
I don't know, because I feel like it's
Because that's
effective.
that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
We should really look into that. There was a book that Mike made me read, and it was called No Drama Discipline, and it was the healthy ways to neurologically raise a kid.
Okay.
And I fucking hated that book because every page, right, on the left hand side is how I was
What's it
raised.
called? No drama
Discipline.
discipline.
So on the left hand side it was how I was raised, and on the right hand side it was how it's appropriate to like talk to a kid, right? And every single page on the left hand side was how I was raised. And I kept flipping through that book and I was like, son of a bitch. Right? Like every single thing that was going on, right, was on the left side of the page. And they're like, a healthier way to talk to your child would be like this. Here's a better way of doing it, right? And I was like, and so I read that book because I was in the process of reparenting my own inner child
Hmm.
in a loving, gentle way, not in a shaming, negative way.
Yeah.
Because the way that you're going to talk to the way that you were describing talking to your kid is the way that you're talking to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds terrible, Matt. You're going to talk to yourself like that?
I think I do.
Well, I would love for you to have some more loving, caring voices in your head to be like, that's not okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think I do say shit like that pretty often.
I would, if you, would you talk to me like that?
No.
So why would you talk to yourself like that?
Yeah, but okay, if it was socially acceptable, maybe.
I mean, we're friends, right?
Yeah.
So would you talk to me that way?
Still not socially acceptable.
Yeah. So why is it socially acceptable to talk to your kid that way?
Because it's not social. It's behind closed doors. Oh,
So
man.
it's okay to shame my kid in private, right? But I wouldn't shame my kid in public.
Okay. Maybe I got some like family work to do.
Okay. In a loving, caring way, I would love for you to take a look at that.
Well, I got the book. I bought
Okay.
the book.
All right. I'm not trying to shame you. I'm just
Okay,
in
let
a
me
loving,
put
in
it
a
to you
loving,
this way.
caring way. I'm gonna be like, huh.
Especially men respond really well to shame.
Men respond really well to shame. They do if that is the only hammer that you possess in your arsenal. I respond better to loving kindness than I do to shame and to like. I just had this discussion with John. John and I were talking about this the other day, and we talked about it in therapy. Who in your life holds you accountable, or like puts up a puts resistance to your bullshit, right? And in group they were trying to say that like it's important to have people in your life that like hold you accountable. And I was like, yeah, you can hold me accountable without shaming me. You can hold me accountable in a loving, caring way. They're like, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And I was like, well, then there's no reason to yell at me if you're being loving and caring, right? I was like, that doesn't compute for me.
Hmm.
You're telling me that you can be loving and kind and yell at me. I'm like, how does that work? Like you're telling me that
Loving, but maybe not kind.
I think what he was trying to go for is like who in your life can you go to be like, hey man, you're fucking some shit up right now, right? And like I'm worried about you, right? Do you have anyone in your life that will be like, I'm worried about you?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I
That's
think you're one
important.
of them.
Yeah, that's important to have.
Yeah, I guess I got a couple.
Yeah, it's cultivating those relationships so that when somebody comes and tells you those particular things, you know that it's not out of malice, it's out of love.
Oh, look what Cynthia just said.
I do shame people who are okay. So this is from Cynthia. I do shame people who are doing things wrong. A homeless guy was
Whipping it out.
whipping it out to urinate in front of me, and I told him God was watching, like I do with my kids. It worked. Well, for that particular level of consciousness, right, and in that particular dynamic, that may be the only thing that person could have heard.
Okay, well, I was that guy though.
You were that guy.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I told you like like yeah.
So the only thing that you would have heard, right, is someone being like, "What the fuck are you doing? God's watching you."
No, I no, I would have heard that too. But if somebody would actually, yeah, maybe if they were like, "Could you not?" I'd have just been like,
Whatever.
yeah.
But you're like, "God's watching you," and you'd be like,
Well, at that point in my life, I would have said there is no God.
"Hmm."
Yeah.
I think every person's level of consciousness can hear different messages at different times from different people, but a
So
loving,
see,
caring.
shame is useful at times.
I'm not saying that shame isn't useful, right? I'm just saying I wouldn't do that to my kid.
Okay, me neither, because I only
So
have
there-
girls.
There's healthy shame and there's toxic shame,
Okay, for sure.
right? So like we're trying not to go down the toxic shame route.
Okay, probably a very thin line though, right?
Um, sh- so like that was one of the pinnacle books that like I've read.
This
right?
one?
No, that one was actually yes, that one. But the one that like changed my recovery completely was John Bradshaw's Healing the Shame That Binds You. And I told you like that book is about what healthy shame looks like and what toxic shame looks like. And I was filled with toxic shame from my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
There was so much shaming going on that is the world that I existed in, and that's all that I knew. right? That's all, and I was just like, why do I always feel so bad about myself? Why do I always feel so shitty? So that's so much toxic shame built up inside of me, and it took loving, caring voices from the meetings that would be like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, right? And then I got to have sponsees that I got to tell that to,
Mm,
and then that whole process allowed for me to be more kind, gentle, and loving,
okay.
right? And so, however I talk to my sponsees is how I'm talking to myself because I don't have kids,
Okay.
right? And so I try to be as tender, loving, and kind as I can to my sponsees,
As
I,
you would to kids.
as I would to like if I was raising kids,
Okay.
because that's how my sponsor is with me, right? And my sponsor's one regret, right, in recovery, after 35 years, right, is that he's like, my biggest regrets are times where I could have been more tender, loving, and kind. Who's that?
It's Robert.
Big Bronze? He says that so Robert says, laugh out loud. Yeah, Doc, I agree. It depends on where the receiving party's mind is at because we can't control how someone perceives the message we are attempting to send out. Yeah. So if you're shame based, right, and I shame you, you're totally gonna feel that.
For sure.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, you're like, fuck that guy. I'm not talking to him again, right? If I'm loving and kind and gentle to you, like, even if you're filled with shame, like, you're still gonna hear it.
Yeah.
How are you feeling right now?
It's so hot in here.
Okay, but yeah, like, but how are you feeling emotionally?
Um, I really wish I had a son. I could shame him and be like, "See, it worked."
Well,
He didn't pee in that tree,
you've
did
got
he?
younger brothers.
Yeah. Oh,
that-
that's a terrible. Yeah.
That doesn't work for them.
We know. Well,
That dynamic.
we would fight. Like
Okay.
it was. Yeah.
Well, there's still time, right? Megan's still got a couple inside of her, right?
What? No. That's that. We shut the door on that.
Oh,
I am
really?
not. Yeah, I'm not.
You're
having
like
more.
done.
Well,
Two
I'm going to have more girls. There is. I'm fully aware of it. I'm not even gonna play the. Yeah, Robert says it's hot in here too. It is so hot.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that is
Okay.
it.
Awesome. Well, I hope that was useful for everybody.
Yeah, I want everybody to have a good Christmas. I've got another
Yes.
one that's happening the morning of Christmas Eve with Taylor Kavanaugh. Got a special guest coming on, but stay sober, right? There's nothing on the other side of that, like on the bottom of that glass, that you are going to miss.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, thank you
wanna hit
guys.
you want to hit the clicker again before you hit stop?
No.